Chapter 630. Get ready. We are about to head to the audition. You still haven't told me what kind of film it is. Chen Xingyan asked as she followed behind Nziheo. You'll know when you get there. Nziheo remained mysterious as he smiled seductively. Actually, when Nziheo wasn't boring, he had a mature charm. However, he always pretended to be serious. Sometimes, Chen Xingyan even wondered how cool this man would be if he knew how to smoke and race. Yet, he chose to live a serious life. Boring. It didn't take long before Nziheo brought Chen Xingyan to the audition venue. It was a relatively famous training ground in Beijing. The reason why the audition was held here was because they were looking for the best action actors. Chen Xingyan immediately noticed the name of the production team, The Savage Wars. It was an American sci-fi film. Above all, they weren't looking for a stunt double. They were looking for an action actor that had to appear on screen. Chen Xingyan immediately wanted to run away, but Nziheo locked her in the car. Why are you running? I know about this film. They don't hire stunt doubles. Don't forget our initial promise. If it was Tongning and she was given the same opportunity, if she was also afraid of appearing on screen, she would think of all sorts of ways to overcome the obstacles in her heart. Because she knows, those that run away will never see the light of day. Firstly, I'm not Tongning. Secondly, I don't like to be lectured. Chen Xingyan replied arrogantly. I hate it when people compare me to others. I like to be free and do what I like to do. Only the capable have the right to say no. Nziheo pulled out a contract and threw it at Chen Xingyan. Look at the contract yourself. Here is the 6th rule. Chen Xingyan immediately flipped it open. It clearly stated that during the contract, she could not go against her manager's reasonable arrangements. Are you trying to trick me? You can get out of the car right now. But first place the $20 million penalty fee in front of me, Nziheo instructed. I refuse to believe that I can't tame your arrogant personality. As soon as Chen Xingyan saw Nziheo was serious and that he was even more arrogant than she was, she immediately became obedient. To put it simply, she was the type of person that bullied the weak and feared the strong. She especially liked people that could suppress her. Let me make this clear first. If you screw up, don't blame me. Although Chen Xingyan still didn't obey Nziheo, at least she didn't resist. Nziheo got out of the car and led Chen Xingyan into the training grounds. The training grounds were already filled with experts who had heard of Chen Xingyan's fame and were all ready to go. Chen Xingyan continued to act sloppily, especially as she watched others audition. Her eyes were filled with disdain. There are still 10 people in front. After that, it will be your turn. Chen Xingyan said. And Chen Xingyan did not follow. In reality, Chen Xingyan really wanted to sneak away. But as soon as she entered the bathroom, she overheard the discussions of the people around her. Chen and Tuoven. The one who won the Fei Tian Best New Director Award. Are you trying to say that he cheated on you with Tongning? One of the men spoke in a softer voice, but Chen Xingyan could still hear it clearly. Sure. Do you want Hai Rui to take revenge on you? Everyone is worried about their own safety, but Nziheo doesn't seem to care. He even brought an artist here for an audition. Did you see that young lady? She's 20 years old at most. She's not bad looking, but you can tell that she's not a proper action actress. Do you even need to ask? Where can she find any real talent at her age? Hearing this, Chen Xingyan pushed open the cubicle door and swaggered over to the sink. As she washed her hands, she lifted her head and glared at the 2 gossiping women. She was used to being shameless, but of course, she couldn't afford to be taken advantage of. It was bad enough that they were talking about Nziheo, but how dare they talk about her? Nonsense. I don't have any real talent. Do you? Chen Xingyan asked straightforwardly. The 2 women felt a little awkward after being caught gossiping behind someone's back. So they subconsciously looked elsewhere. I have my eyes on the 2 of you. Don't let me find out your names. Otherwise, I will be the first to report you to Hai Rui. As soon as the 2 women heard that Chen Xingyan was going to report to Hai Rui, they immediately apologized. Sorry, we were just being rude. Please forgive us. Chen Xingyan glanced at the 2 women and scoffed before she walked out of the bathroom without saying a word. As the people in front were too useless, the interviews usually took a minute, and some took less than 10 seconds. Just as it was about to be Chen Xingyan's turn, where was she? And Zihao lifted his left hand and looked at his watch. Did Chen Xingyan actually need 10 minutes to go to the bathroom? Did the little rascal really retreat and run away? Not long after, the interviewer called Chen Xingyan's name. It seemed someone had adjusted the speed and moved her closer to the front. But where was he supposed to find her? And Zihao took a deep breath. His voice was filled with disappointment. Just as he stood up to leave, Chen Xingyan walked past him. I'll go in first. I thought you ran away. Even if I wanted to run away, I should have beaten them up first. Chen Xingyan had actually returned to the lobby a while ago. Coincidentally, she saw the two women getting ready for their interview and assumed they were from the same group. And Zihao thought she was enlightened, so he sat back down. But who would have thought? After entering the room, Chen Xingyan was originally supposed to wait for a notice. But Chen Xingyan directly approached the interviewer and said in broken English, I can fight with them and act as the villain. As soon as the interviewer heard Chen Xingyan's suggestion, he felt it was quite interesting and agreed. So, Chen Xingyan got what she wanted. The chance to beat someone up. Back when she was an extra at the film base, she loved to beat people up and then fix their broken bones. Now that she had come across two women with foul mouths, she was going to beat them to death. So she didn't care about the setting. All she cared about was beating them up. She forgot that there were cameras all around her as she walked up to them and punched them. The women sensed her seriousness, so they had no choice but to fight with all their might. So out of all the actors present, the fight between the three women was the most realistic. Although Chen Xingyan was fighting 1 against 2, her movements were smooth and fluid. Her strength was shocking. The interviewers couldn't help but praise, perfect. But Chen Xingyan didn't care. She directly beat the woman up until she had a nosebleed. She then smiled innocently under the woman's hateful gaze. I'm sorry, my fists hold grudges. You. Chen Xingyan rolled her eyes at the two women before she swaggered out of the training hall. Seeing her like this, and Zihao couldn't help but ask, do you have a grudge against them? It's none of your business. Chen Xingyan still remembered in Zihao, so she didn't want to talk to him. Wait for further notice. And Zihao's lips curved upwards. It turned out the little devil's mental illness wasn't completely incurable. Chapter 631. After Mo Ting agreed to let the woman enter Hyatt Regency, he immediately instructed Feng Yu to do a background check on the woman. It turned out the woman's surname was Bai and her first name was Li Hua. She was once from a wealthy family, but her family fell on hard times. It was also at that time that her family caught fire, and her appearance was ruined. However, she met her savior, Shin Boyo. Over time, they fell in love and eventually got married and gave birth to Chen Xingyan. After finding out about the woman's background, Tongning gave her a phone call. Of course, as Lu Che was still overseas, Mo Ting left the matter of making arrangements for the woman in Hyatt Regency to Long Jia. As soon as Long Jia arrived at Hyatt Regency and saw the woman, she couldn't help but ask why she kept her face covered. The woman couldn't avoid it, so she had no choice but to tell her the truth. I was burned many years ago. That's why I'm like this. Does Tongning know? Long Jia was only concerned about whether she would scare Tongning. Yes, she knows, Bai Li Hua nodded. Don't worry, I will take good care of her. That better be the case. Since Mo Ting had given his approval, Long Jia had no reason to doubt her character. Of course, with Tongning's abilities, she wouldn't be able to do anything to her under Tongning's nose. It didn't take long before the two women arrived at Mo Ting and Tongning's home. At this time, Tongning was practicing the script for concubine Ning. Since your surname is Bai, I will call you Auntie Bai from now on. Long Jia will arrange everything else for you. Tongning said politely as she put down her script. Meanwhile, seeing Tongning like this, Bai Li Hua felt extremely comfortable. At home, Tongning appeared even more calm and graceful. She was as calm as a chrysanthemum flower. In fact, she appeared extraordinary and aloof from worldly affairs. Okay, Mrs. Mo. You can just call me Tongning. She had no intention of treating Bai Li Hua like a servant. Let's go, I'll show you around. Bai Lihua nodded her head at Long Jie. Just as she was about to turn around, she suddenly thought of something and asked, "Have you thought of a way to deal with Hua Wenfeng? How could something like this be a problem for our Tongning?" Seeing that Tongning did not respond, Long Jie answered Bai Lihua's question. "That's good. If you need anything from me, please let me know," Bai Lihua said sincerely. Tongning nodded her head and allowed Long Jie to show Bai Lihua around while she immersed herself in her script. "Has Hua Wenfeng always treated Tongning so badly?" Bai Lihua asked as she suppressed the anger in her heart while familiarizing herself with the surroundings. He hasn't stopped since the first day he came back," Long Jie replied in disdain. "Her hatred for Tongning is ridiculous. You've seen for yourself how much trouble she's caused Tongning since her return. You don't know why. Who knows? She slandered Tongning for hurting her, accused Tongning of having an affair with someone else, and said the child in her stomach was unhealthy. I've never seen such a disgusting mother-in-law." After hearing this, Bai Lihua clenched her fists. "It doesn't matter. Just return them to her one by one in the future." After hearing Bai Lihua's words, Long Jie froze. Was she imagining things? She had a feeling that the woman in front of her hated Hua Wenfeng more than anyone else. But seeing that Bai Lihua's expression was normal, Tongning dismissed her worries. She was probably overthinking things. Bai Lihua was just a normal commoner. How could she possibly come into contact with someone like Hua Wenfeng? By the way, can Miss Long tell me where Hua Wenfeng is staying in a moment? That way, I can be mentally prepared. Long Jie thought for a moment and felt the woman was quite thorough. So she nodded her head. "Okay, I'll tell you everything in a moment." She was finally here. "Hua Wenfeng, your retribution shouldn't be too far away." In reality, Tongning was not used to Bai Lihua's new arrival at Hyatt Regency. After all, when Mo Ting wasn't around, she was the only one moving around in the big house. Now that Bai Lihua was here, she had to give it a try before she felt at ease. So, she deliberately placed her scripts all over the place and pretended to fall asleep on the sofa. It didn't take long before Bai Lihua entered the living room. Seeing that Tongning had fallen asleep, Bai Lihua retrieved a thin blanket from the guest room and placed it over her. She also placed the scripts in a hidden drawer on the coffee table because she knew they were extremely important. Tongning felt she had gone a little overboard. She was certain that Bai Lihua had entered Hyatt Regency with a motive, but Bai Lihua had no ill intentions towards her. So Tongning slowly relaxed. Soon, Mo Ting returned home. Bai Lihua had already prepared a sumptuous meal. Taking into consideration that Tongning was pregnant, the meal was well-balanced and nutritious. Seeing this, Tongning couldn't help but smile at Mo Ting. "Now that Auntie Bai is here, you'll have more time to rest." "But I don't feel tired at all." Mo Ting unbuttoned his shirt and placed his jacket on the sofa. Only after he hugged Tongning would he feel at ease. "Hurry and eat. You still have a tough battle to fight tomorrow, so you need to rest early," Tongning said with a hidden meaning. "I've already arranged everything for you." Mo Ting carried Tongning to the dining table and carefully placed her down. At this time, Bai Lihua was standing to one side. Of course, she did not dare to look at the couple sitting at the table, because she was afraid of revealing her emotions. When it came to Tongning, she could control herself, but when it came to Mo Ting, he was her son. How could she hold back her tears? "Auntie Bai, you should get some rest. There's nothing else you need to do here." After hearing Tongning's words, Bai Lihua quickly replied, "Don't worry, I'll go tidy up the kitchen. I won't disturb the two of you." "That's not what I meant. Auntie Bai, Mo Ting and I are simple people. We don't have many rules at home. Relax. I know you are a good person, so I will do my best to take care of you." After speaking, Bai Lihua left the dining room and returned to her guest room. At this time, she had to think of a way to cooperate with Tongning and make Hua Wenfeng pay the price. Not only did Hua Wenfeng bully her, she even bullied her son, daughter-in-law and future grandchild. She deserved to die. Of course, as a vengeful person, Tongning had no intention of going easy on Hua Wenfeng. Everything would depend on the exciting show tomorrow. Would Hua Wenfeng win? Or would Tongning be confident in her victory? The dining table had already returned to its usual warmth and tranquility. But at this time, the food in Mo Ting's mouth had an indescribable taste. What's wrong? Tang Ning asked. The taste isn't bad. It doesn't lose to you or me. Mo Ting used these words to hide the emotions in his heart. Chapter 632. Hua Wenfeng's deal at Moreau Hotel was scheduled to take place at 2 p.m., but Hua Wenfeng arrived half an hour early. Her motive was to check the hotel's facilities to see if she had been followed or had been secretly recorded. But of course there was none. In order to destroy Tang Ning, Hua Wenfeng was willing to pay any price. Even if she had to spend $30 million, she did not feel the slightest bit of heartache. Inside the hotel, Tang Ning's previous commercial from when she was a model was still on display. As soon as Hua Wenfeng saw it, her lips curved into a contemptuous smile. She knew she was about to destroy everything Tang Ning had worked so hard for. Although it was going to be a good show, Tang Ning had no intention of leaving the house. So she decided to stay at home and watch Hua Wenfeng's arrogance turn into a joke. Tang Ning, everything is ready, Fang Yu said over the phone. We have already connected to the biggest screen in the city. We can start the live broadcast at any time. I'm looking forward to a good show. After speaking, Tang Ning hung up the phone, put away her script and picked up the remote control beside her. 2 p.m. The woman that Hua Wenfeng had arranged to meet up with soon appeared. However, she was covered up in disguise. As soon as Hua Wenfeng saw her, she couldn't help but laugh. You don't need to be so nervous. Hai Rue is already investigating the evidence. The friend that I accidentally revealed has also gone into hiding overseas. So, I am currently trembling in fear and not knowing what to do. No matter what you are worried about, I can help you. Hua Wenfeng removed her sunglasses to show her respect and sincerity. Aren't you Tang Ning's mother-in-law? Are you Hua Wenfeng? Did you buy evidence of Tang Ning cheating to show to President Mo? The woman was obviously shocked as she immediately stood up. If I knew you were the one buying it, I wouldn't have come. Sit down first and let me finish. Hua Wenfeng grabbed the woman and pulled her to sit down. To be honest, I don't like Tang Ning either. So I can't possibly go to Mo Ting and expose you. I don't believe you, unless you can give me some evidence. After speaking, the woman pulled out her phone and pressed the record button. Are you brave enough to let me ask you a few questions? If you really answer me, then I can give you the photo. Hua Wenfeng looked deeply at the young artist in front of her. She could tell that the woman before her was easily frightened. After considering her options, she nodded her head and shrugged her shoulders. Go ahead and ask him. If you can't answer me, then there is no need for us to make a deal. After all, if word of this gets out, it will definitely cause irreversible consequences, and Hai Rue will never let me off the hook. If you're not willing to pay the price, then there's no need for me to take the risk, right? Obviously, the man was being cautious because of Hua Wenfeng's half-hearted attitude. Seeing how determined the woman was, Hua Wenfeng finally said with certainty, Ask me anything and I will answer honestly. Firstly, you tried so hard to find me to get photos of Tang Ning having an affair. You couldn't possibly have done it just to verify the authenticity of the affair, right? Hua Wenfeng thought for a moment and replied, I want to show it to my son. I want him to know what kind of person Tang Ning is. After all, Tang Ning really cheated on me. I didn't wrongly accuse her. Do you hate Tang Ning so much because Tang Ning hurt you? The woman looked at Hua Wenfeng suspiciously. I can't understand why you and Tang Ning have such a deep grudge against each other. Why are you willing to pay any price to find evidence of her cheating? Isn't Tang Ning your daughter-in-law? Hua Wenfeng thought for a few seconds and suddenly realized something wasn't right. Why do you want to know about this? I'm sorry, Mrs. Mo. If I didn't have something that could protect me, I would never have given you the photos. I've been bitten too many times, so I have to be careful. The woman looked at Hua Wenfeng with disdain. I'm sure you know about the industry and President Mo's capabilities. If he found out that I slandered his wife, he would never let me off easy. How have you slandered Tang Ning? It's a fact that Tang Ning cheated, Hua Wenfeng emphasized. Mrs. Mo, you sure are smart. You always change the topic. Please answer my questions seriously. Otherwise, I will never give you the photos today. Hua Wenfeng froze for a moment before she let out a laugh. It's because Tongning is unfilial and even hurt me. I'm sure you all know about this. Mrs. Mo, let's not beat around the bush. Everyone in the industry knows that Tongning doesn't hurt anyone. The woman obviously did not believe Hua Wenfeng. If you have something to say, then just say it. I'm just a small artist that has lost my reputation. What else do I want? Knowing too much isn't good for you. After hearing this, the woman immediately stood up. I didn't take such a big risk to make a deal with you just to listen to your nonsense. Since we can't come to an agreement, I think it's better for me to stay alive. You're spouting nonsense. It's not worth anything to me. How do I know you won't betray me? Hua Wenfeng sneered. I gave you the photos. Betraying you is equivalent to betraying myself. But you're different. If you don't want to cooperate, then forget it. There's no need to waste everyone's time. After speaking, the woman tried to stand up. But Hua Wenfeng took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in her heart, and dragged the woman back. I cut my arm myself. Hearing this answer, the woman sat back down in front of Hua Wenfeng in satisfaction. Tongning didn't hurt me because there's no way she could hurt me. Then, does the rumor of Tongning having an affair have anything to do with you? No. Hua Wenfeng replied firmly. But it's not like I didn't know about it. Old Mo happened upon Tongning and Zihao discussing business in the living room that day. Who knew what they were doing so intimately? Of course, Old Mo wouldn't let Mo Ting suffer, so he exposed the matter. But he only told a few close friends and kept it within the industry. I never thought you would treat your daughter-in-law like this. The woman's voice contained a slight sense of ridicule. This has nothing to do with you. All you need to do is give me the photos of Tongning having an affair. Hua Wenfeng was unhappy with the woman's mocking expression, but at this moment, she had a favor to ask. Mo Ting doesn't need a wife like this. He deserves someone better to accompany him. Has Tongning ever wronged you? You're asking too many questions. Hua Wenfeng was a little unhappy. That's the last question. I don't like her, Hua Wenfeng replied casually. In other words, she didn't do anything wrong. After speaking, the woman put down her phone and deleted the recording right in front of Hua Wenfeng. Chapter 633. Just now, I simply wanted to test you. Since you're willing to tell me the truth, I'm willing to make a deal with you. Seeing this, Hua Wenfeng laughed. Young lady, you sure have a lot of tricks up your sleeve. But in the end I deleted it. The young artist put down her phone. Seeing this, Hua Wenfeng immediately relaxed. Of course, in a corner that she couldn't see, the small camera on the young artist's body had already captured everything that Hua Wenfeng had said. Even the slightest expression on her face was captured clearly. To be honest, I don't like actors, especially not smart ones. She is my daughter-in-law. Don't you know that Tongning is pregnant with your grandson? Hearing this question, Hua Wenfeng couldn't help but laugh. My son is the big boss of the entertainment industry. Do you think he would worry that no one will give birth to his child? You are quite disgusting. The young woman replied straightforwardly. Although I did something wrong, I know I asked for it. But the way you treated a pregnant woman was quite shameless. All right, enough nonsense. Where's the thing I want? The young woman looked deeply into Hua Wenfeng's eyes before she sent the photo on her phone to Hua Wenfeng. You can have it, but I don't want the money. I don't think I can spend this disgusting amount of money. Good luck. After speaking, the young woman stood up and left. As soon as Hua Wenfeng received the photo, she immediately sent it to Father Mo. So this is your daughter-in-law. Hua Wenfeng had no idea that everything she said and did in front of the young artist that afternoon was being displayed on the biggest commercial screen in Beijing. Of course, from beginning to end, the video only showed Hua Wenfeng. The young artist was nowhere to be seen, so it protected her from the media's attacks. Now everyone knew what kind of person Hua Wenfeng was, and how much Tongning had suffered during this period of time. Only Hua Wenfeng was proud that she had obtained a photo of Tongning cheating. Damn, just because she looks down on Tongning, she treated a pregnant woman like this. How shameless. The netizens began to discuss. I wonder who this kind-hearted person is. If it wasn't for her, who knows how much more injustice Tongning would have to endure. It's so pitiful. Hua Wenfeng is the most evil mother-in-law I've ever met. Didn't President Mo's father say that Tang Ning cheated on him? I never thought that the rich and powerful were so messy. What a great show. I feel this was all planned by Tang Ning. But to be fair, Hua Wenfeng was framed and Hua Wenfeng was framed in this way. In an instant, because of the leaked video and Hua Wenfeng's true face, the people of Beijing finally understood the true meaning of a sinister person, and how evil they could be. To Hua Wenfeng, the person that sacrificed herself also showed them the photo she sent to Hua Wenfeng. On the huge screen, there was indeed only Tang Ning and An Zihao in the photo. But those with discerning eyes could immediately tell that something was wrong. This is photoshopped, okay? I have to hand it to Hua Wenfeng. Previously, someone even photoshopped Tang Ning as his wife. Was Tang Ning cheating on him too? Mrs. To do. To, Feng to if I was to, if I were of Tang, I ling to be to my to. Hua Wenfeng had no idea that the weather outside had changed. After speaking to Father Mo, she gave Mo Ting a phone call. Xiao Ting, do you know what photo your father just received? What? Evidence of Tang Ning cheating. Evidence of Tang Ning and An Zihao cheating. Hua Wenfeng yelled. Oh so? So you should quickly divorce this kind of woman. How can she be my son's wife? Miss Hua, are you referring to this photo? On the other side of the phone, Mo Ting's lips curved upwards as he sent the original photo back. If Tang Ning's fans were observant enough, they would have noticed that the original man in the photo was Mo Ting. This was a photo of Mo Ting and Tang Ning. Mo Ting directly sent the original photo back to Hua Wenfeng. After seeing it, Hua Wenfeng was confused. Xiao Ting, it can't be. It's not this photo. This photo is a photo of me and Tang Ning. Hua Wenfeng froze for a moment. All of a sudden, she didn't understand what Mo Ting meant. Very confused, right? You'll understand everything in a moment. After speaking, Mo Ting hung up the phone. At this time, Hua Wenfeng realized something must have changed, so she immediately left the hotel. But, on her way out, a passerby spotted her and immediately pointed at her. I can't believe this evil woman still dares to appear. A woman's heart is the most vicious. How shameless. I hope my mother-in-law doesn't learn from her. It seemed all of a sudden, everyone was filled with ridicule and insults towards Hua Wenfeng. In fact, someone even threw an object at Hua Wenfeng. What a jerk. Hua Wenfeng didn't understand what was happening. She wanted to call a taxi and leave. But as soon as she flagged down a taxi, the driver immediately refused to take her. Why is it you? I won't take you. Call another taxi. Can I ask why? Why? Go to Global Square and look at the big screen. I've lived for so long, yet I've come across someone as evil as you. It's quite an eye-opener. After speaking, the driver drove off. Hua Wenfeng's arm was injured, so she couldn't drive herself. But she couldn't get a taxi either, so all she could do was hide. Not long after, the entertainment news appeared online, reporting on Hua Wenfeng's magnificent feat. It was all over the news, and there were even messages popping up. Hua Wenfeng's hands trembled as she watched her name appear on the screen of her phone. A moment later, she realized what had happened. So this was what happened. So this was what happened. Hua Wenfeng's body suddenly went limp as she sat on the cold ground. At this moment, the entire world realized how ugly she was inside. Hua Wenfeng lay on the ground in tears. She finally understood why the passers-by were pointing and gossiping. No, how did this happen? How did this happen? Shame and anger. It was a feeling of shame and anger. Hua Wenfeng was suddenly engulfed by this feeling. Hua Wenfeng lay motionless on the ground. It was Father Mo who found her after walking around the hotel. Wenfeng, get up. Get up. Old Mo, take me to Tang Ning. Take me to Tang Ning. Hua Wenfeng lifted her head. Her eyes were red and filled with tears. Okay, I'll take you to Tang Ning right now. Father Mo carried Hua Wenfeng into the car, and the couple headed straight for Hyatt Regency. But at a time like this, what was the point of looking for Tang Ning? Of course, Tang Ning had already expected this moment, so she said to Bai Lihua, Auntie Bai, in a moment, stay in your room. No matter what happens, don't come out. Chapter 634. Is it because of the incident that was revealed on the big screen in Global Square this afternoon? Bai Lihua asked. Hua Wenfeng will definitely come looking for you. I can't leave you on your own. It's fine, Tang Ning smiled gently. I've already prepared myself. I won't let her bully me. Even if that's the case, I will still stay here and watch over you. Bai Lihua looked into Tang Ning's eyes with determination. Tang Ning looked at Bai Lihua and realized she had a strong desire to protect her. It was a desire that she couldn't resist. So in the end, Tang Ning nodded her head. In that case, don't make a sound. Let me handle everything. Where's Mo Ting? Doesn't he know that Hua Wenfeng will come looking for you? Tang Ning smiled and pointed to the study room upstairs with her chin. He's upstairs. He came back as soon as the incident happened. He's currently looking at some contracts upstairs. That's good. Bai Lihua relaxed. At this time, Mo Ting's voice sounded from upstairs. Auntie Bai, go open the door. Bai Lihua was a little confused. She thought Hua Wenfeng had come to Hyatt Regency. But as soon as she opened the door, she saw Feng Yu entering the living room with 4 bodyguards. He then turned and left. In a moment, if Tang Ning wants anything, help her get it. Don't tire her out. As her son, it wasn't that he couldn't be present when Hua Wenfeng and Tang Ning fought. But he knew that Tang Ning needed to vent her anger. So it was best for him to stay away. As for the bodyguards, they were there to prevent Hua Wenfeng from getting physical. After all, his wife was currently pregnant, so it wasn't appropriate for her to have any physical contact with others. Hua Wenfeng is here to cause trouble. As her husband, shouldn't he step out to express his stance? Bai Lihua didn't understand Mo Ting's actions. If he doesn't show up, that is his attitude. He knows that I have a lot of anger in my heart. If he's around, I won't be able to enjoy myself. Tang Ning replied straightforwardly. Auntie Bai, if there's one person in this world that can understand my soul, then that person is my husband. He knows everything that I want. Okay. At this moment, Bai Lihua still didn't quite understand the meaning behind Tang Ning's words. So, she could only wait for Hua Wenfeng to appear before she could answer her question. It didn't take long before an anxious knock sounded from the front door. Of course, Tang Ning didn't need to open the door herself. However, the people in the living room were a little surprised to see Hua Wenfeng barging into the house. Because Ms. Hua seemed to be doing things that didn't match her status at all times. Mom, why didn't you tidy up before coming over? Tang Ning asked calmly. Tang Ning, you're still pretending. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have lost my reputation. Hua Wenfeng wanted to pounce on Tang Ning, but she was held back by the bodyguard. I am your mother-in-law. How dare you treat me like this? Tang Ning, were you the one behind the incident outside? Father Mo questioned as he helped Hua Wenfeng up. Yes, it's me. Tang Ning asked Father Mo calmly. She had never treated the 2 men as rivals. But so what? Aren't you all very clear? I am vicious and vengeful. You can't assume that just because I am pregnant, I don't have any fighting spirit. Just because I am your daughter-in-law, don't think that I will let you bully me. I'm not a person that likes to be taken advantage of. Tang Ning said calmly and casually. Today, I simply destroyed Ms. Hua's reputation. If she doesn't admit defeat and wants to continue, I am more than happy to entertain her. Tang Ning, I hope you and the child in your stomach die a horrible death. Hua Wenfeng cursed as she pointed at Tang Ning. Take back your filthy hands, Tang Ning yelled. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless. For some reason, perhaps it was because Hua Wenfeng had never seen Tang Ning like this before, but as soon as she heard Tang Ning's yell, she couldn't help but tremble. Take a good look at yourself. How are you behaving like a member of the Mo family? First, you slandered your daughter-in-law, then you tried to drive a wedge between us. Now you've cursed your grandson and used the media to disregard the Mo family's reputation. You can continue to act like this, but don't even think about harming me and our child. Otherwise, the humiliation we have suffered today, tomorrow, I will return it to you 100-fold, 1,000-fold. Let's see who is more ruthless. Today, I can destroy your reputation. Tomorrow, I can make you beg for your life. Tang Ning, the way you treat your mother-in-law is intolerable. Father Mo stuttered in anger. Father Emo was so angry that he began to stutter. If you dare do anything to hurt Wenfeng again, I won't. I won't let you off. Father. Take a good look at the woman in front of you. Is she really your wife? Tongning asked as she pointed to Hua Wenfeng with her chin. What do you mean? Tongning, stop spouting nonsense in front of Xiaoyuan, you cheap actress. As soon as Hua Wenfeng heard Tongning's words, she yelled in self-defense. As long as I, Hua Wenfeng, am alive, I will never acknowledge you as a member of the Emo family. Do I need your approval? Tongning asked. Or, are you so agitated because I said something I shouldn't have? You're being ridiculous. The truth will never be covered up. The world has its own justice. Tongning's words made everyone curious. Afterwards, she said to Father Emo, Father, you should keep your wife in check. When it comes to scheming, she is no match for me with her intellect. I've always been a playful person. If someone wants to risk their life against me, I will be able to hold them off for a while. You can hate me or curse me, I won't lose a single hair. But don't try to fight me. After hearing Tongning's warning, Father Emo wanted to step forward and slap her across the face. Unfortunately, he couldn't do it because Tongning was surrounded by bodyguards. I'm currently pregnant, so I don't want to make a big fuss. I'm giving you guys some face. But if you don't want to control yourself and continue to do ugly things, then I have no choice but to play along. What did Emo Ting say? Father Emo asked angrily. He no longer wanted to listen to Tongning. Did you think Emo Ting would still want to talk to you? Father Emo remained silent for a few seconds before he glanced upstairs. He knew Emo Ting was home, but just like Tongning said, he didn't want to see him and Hua Wenfeng. So Father Emo swallowed his anger and prepared to leave with Hua Wenfeng. But Hua Wenfeng suddenly broke free from Father Mo's embrace and approached Tongning. Were you trying to tell me that I'm a fake and that I'm not Emo Ting's mother? Chapter 635. Did I say anything? Tongning asked casually. Let me tell you, you slut. I will find evidence and make you pay for what you've done today. Hua Wenfeng's eyes turned red. It seemed she was quite angry. Of course, this made Tongning even more suspicious. If she didn't have a guilty conscience, why would she react in such a way? I'll wait for your evidence. Hua Wenfeng glared at Tongning. She then turned to look at the study room upstairs. I, Hua Wenfeng, have given birth to this unfilial son for nothing. My husband doesn't have cruel and unscrupulous parents. Tongning lifted her chin. In terms of aura, she naturally suppressed Hua Wenfeng. Father Emo scoffed as he led Hua Wenfeng out of Tongning and Emo Ting's home. Afterwards, Tongning took a deep breath and sat down on the sofa. Bai Lihua immediately ran over to help her. Are you okay? Tongning gently shook her head. A moment later, the two women heard Emo Ting's voice coming from the study room upstairs. They then saw his silhouette at the door. Auntie Bai, from now on, I want these 4 bodyguards to stand guard outside the house at all times. You will be in charge of deploying them. As long as someone comes knocking on the door, don't let them in. Yes, Mr. Emo. After speaking, Emo Ting headed downstairs and pulled Tongning into his embrace. Have you vented your anger? Tongning quietly leaned into Emo Ting's embrace as she listened to his steady heartbeat. In this world, I think you are the only person that would allow me to bully my parents like this. Xiaoning, someone was the one that went overboard first. You were simply protecting yourself. You didn't do anything wrong, Bai Lihua said from behind Tongning. This world has always been a place where the weak are bullied and the strong are feared. If you don't hold back, she will never stop attacking unless she achieves her goal. Your words are my words. Emo Ting did not say anything else. He simply said calmly, whatever you want to do, is what I want to do. You. Tongning smiled helplessly. Even if I were to kill someone, you would probably bury the body for me. I won't allow anyone to bully you. This was something that had been true from the moment they got married. Tongning lifted her head and looked into Emo Ting's eyes. His pupils were like a vast sea of stars, so bright that she couldn't take her eyes off them. I'm feeling a lot better. Go back to work. I have something I want to talk to Auntie Bai about. Tongning gently pushed against Emo Ting's chest. Ting placed a kiss on Tongning's lips and covered her with the blanket again. He then gestured for the bodyguards to guard the door, leaving Tongning and Bai Lihua alone. After Ting left, Tongning looked at Bai Lihua and asked, "Auntie Bai, have you ever experienced injustice?" Hearing Tongning's question, Bai Lihua was immediately reminded of the two people that had just left. It's all in the past. It's not worth mentioning. Have you ever thought of revenge? I've thought about it for many years, but Xiaoxing is always by my side. Bai Lihua replied straightforwardly. All right, then let me know when you feel like talking about it. Xiaoning, I have a presumptuous request. Bai Lihua took the opportunity to ask Tongning, when I miss Xiaoxing, can you let her into Hyatt Regency? With the mention of Chen Xingyan, Tongning immediately thought of the child that Zihao protected at Hu Jingjing's birthday party. The child wasn't even 20 years old and was mischievous, but she wasn't annoying. So, Tongning smiled and nodded her head. I trust that you know what to do. That child has always been out of line since she was young. She has never been restrained by society. So, if Zihao provoked her, would it be a blessing or a curse? After Hua Wenfeng followed Father Mo into the house, she crazily swept everything onto the floor. All that could be heard was the sound of utensils shattering. After quite some time, Father Mo approached her and pulled her into his embrace. Forget it, Wenfeng. We can't afford to offend that woman. If worse comes to worst, we will never see each other again. No way, Hua Wenfeng yelled. Didn't you hear what she said? She said I'm a fake and that I'm not Mo Ting's mother. She was just spouting nonsense. Did you take her seriously? I will go to the hospital tomorrow to do a DNA test. I want her to know that Mo Ting wants to get rid of me as his mother. He must be dreaming. Father Mo understood that Hua Wenfeng was still angry, so he did not try to stop her. After she calmed down, Father Mo carried her into the bedroom and placed her on the bed. Let's pretend we never had this son. Old Mo, you need to believe in my innocence. I can't allow her to slander me like this. No matter how much hatred she has towards me, my relationship with Mo Ting as mother and son isn't something that she can simply erase. Okay. Let's go to the hospital tomorrow. We will do a DNA test. No one can slander my wife. There was no doubt that Father Mo doted on Hua Wenfeng, so it was understandable that he was tricked by her. Plus, Hua Wenfeng insisted on going to the hospital for a DNA test. So the hatred he had for Tongning was deeply rooted in his heart. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do. A DNA test? Didn't Hua Wenfeng have a guilty conscience? Meanwhile, Bai Lihua still remembered the words that Tongning had said to Hua Wenfeng. Had Tongning discovered something? Of course, Tongning had dealt a harsh blow to Hua Wenfeng this time. So everyone in Beijing hated Hua Wenfeng, so they naturally kept an eye on her every move. This would definitely make Tongning's life a lot easier from now on. After all, with so many eyes watching over her, the chances of Hua Wenfeng acting recklessly would be very low. Although Hua Wenfeng's reputation has been completely destroyed and it's a little pitiful, I must say, Tongning, you are really satisfying. Plus, the strange thing is, no one dragged Boss into this matter. Boss staying out of it is indeed the best choice. Seeing the smile on Long Jie's face, Tongning also let out a gentle laugh. You've been visiting me a lot lately. Is it because Lu Che isn't home and you're bored? Actually, I'm here because I have an idea, Long Jie said as she approached Tongning. Lu Che and I are both fine, but we just can't get pregnant. So, I've decided to have a test tube baby. But I'm afraid. That's why I came to ask you if it's possible. Tongning knew that Long Jie really wanted a child, so she wasn't surprised at all. Have you discussed this with Lu Che? I'm waiting for him to come home, Long Jie replied. I'm just unsure, so I wanted to talk to someone about it. It's not a bad thing. I just think it's a little strange. Long Jie felt a little uneasy. Lu Che and I are both fine, but we just can't get pregnant. In the end, we had to resort to this method. It's hard for me to get used to it. Chapter 636. You don't have the final say in this matter. You should ask Lu Che first, Tongning suggested. After all, this is a matter between you and your wife. You shouldn't always think that you can make all the decisions on your own. However, after trying all methods and seeing no results, I think it's feasible. After receiving Tongning's approval, Longjie clapped her hands and said, "Let's do it." "Sorry, I didn't mean to eavesdrop on you too. I simply overheard you talking about IVF. Does Miss Long want a baby?" Behind them, Bai Lihua placed a teacup in front of Longjie as she scanned her body. "Is there a problem?" "Auntie Bai, does this mean you know about this?" Longjie leaned back on the sofa. She was curious about Bai Lihua. "Perhaps. I can answer your questions. After all, Bai Lihua was Mo Ting's real mother. So it wasn't a lie that she researched biotechnology. Since that was the case, she was naturally familiar with genetics. "You can show me your test results." After hearing this, Tongning and Longjie suddenly had a new understanding of the disfigured woman in front of them. "Okay, I'll bring them to you in a moment. If Auntie Bai can really help me, I will be extremely grateful." In reality, Chun Xingyan had a strange personality, and she also knew a few things that a quack doctor would know. So, she wasn't surprised that Bai Lihua knew about this. Longjie simply wanted to give it a try. After all, they weren't going to get tested by a proper doctor. So she didn't have high hopes for Bai Lihua. But having hope was better than having no hope at all. So Longjie quickly handed her and Lu Che's test results to Bai Lihua. "Auntie Bai, it's all here." Bai Lihua held the report in her hands and looked at it carefully. After comparing the results, she said to Longjie, "According to the report, you and Mr. Lu are indeed healthy. Everything is normal." "Then why did we?" "Don't panic." Bai Lihua tried to calm Longjie down. "There are still a lot of things that cannot be explained in the medical field. As for infertility, there are a lot of people like you who can't find a reason for it. In that case, did the hospital tell you that the environment can affect pregnancy?" "What? What do you mean?" Longjie obviously didn't think about the environment. "Miss Long, you and Mr. Lu should move." Bai Lihua seemed to have suddenly received an answer as she smiled at Longjie. When it comes to infertility, one of the main reasons is due to physical and chemical reasons and environmental pollution. The two of you have strong bodies. Why don't you try a change of environment? "There's such a thing? But the previous hospitals didn't tell me. You all went for the checkup alone, and your bodies are fine. Most hospitals either ask you to do IVF or let nature take its course. Many doctors will ignore these seemingly secondary reasons." Longjie's heart was suddenly filled with hope as she looked at Bai Lihua in a new light. "I never thought our Auntie Bai would be so amazing." Actually, Tongning noticed that Bai Lihua was quite knowledgeable when it came to medicinal cuisine. At the very least, when Bai Lihua took care of her current meals, she never had to look up information to understand the attributes of the food. She simply knew how to make it the most nutritious. "Go back and give it a try. If it works, you can thank me again." Longjie excitedly pulled out her phone and gave Lu Che a phone call. Meanwhile, Tongning looked at Auntie Bai with a serious expression. "I never thought Auntie Bai was so good at hiding things." "Not really. I learned it in the past. Xiao Xing was injured when he was young and he practiced martial arts, so I decided to learn it." Tongning nodded her head and did not continue asking. But Bai Lihua's skills weren't something that could be learned casually. At least, Tongning was certain that Bai Lihua was very professional. "In that case, your face." Bai Lihua understood what Tongning was trying to say. She understood why Tongning didn't choose to undergo plastic surgery to restore her appearance. "My injuries are too severe and I can't recover. If I want to remove my mask, I will need at least 4 surgeries. Even if I manage to get it back, my face won't look natural. In fact, it might even look more frightening. So I gave up," Bai Lihua explained in seriousness. "Over the years I've been overseas a few times, but I'm sorry, Auntie Bai." "It's fine." Bai Lihua smiled. But under her mask, her skin seemed to be stretched taut because of this smile. Too much time had passed. All that was left were scars. But this hatred and vengeance was etched deep into her heart. The next day, the production crew of The Savage Wars gave Zaheo a phone call. They were very satisfied with Chun Xingyan's performance and wanted to sign her as one of the villains. It seemed, the ruthless way she hit people left a deep impression on the interviewers. So the production crew contacted An Zihao and requested him to bring Chen Xingyan along when they went to the US. Instead of securing a main character, they secured the female villain. An Zihao looked at Chen Xingyan in the distance. He felt this woman was quite unbelievable. It was bad enough that she acted casually, but was her life also so casual? And, don't look at me like that. Over the past 2 days, Chen Xingyan had gotten herself a video game console. Instead of playing with cash, she insisted on playing something that was hard to find on the streets. Are you going to act as the #1 villain? It's not like you don't know that I can't face the camera. But during the audition, you were surrounded by at least 10 video games. I was there to beat someone up. I had no intention of going for the audition. Chen Xingyan rolled her eyes. Plus, why would I go overseas? All I know is how to say that I'm not gay. Do you want me to embarrass myself? You can stop pretending. An Zihao clearly saw Chen Xingyan speaking to the interviewer in English that day. Although her English was a little lacking, she wasn't completely clueless. Hey, and there's no need for you to turn me into an international superstar. I think I'm doing great right now. There's no need for me to change. Don't you have any goals in life? Of course I do. I like excitement. Chen Xingyan replied in seriousness. I like the impossible. So, don't ask me to act as a villain. I've already experienced that feeling. I'm not interested. At this moment, An Zihao's heart was in turmoil. He couldn't understand why he had signed Chen Xingyan to torture himself. What are you living for? Chapter 637. Chen Xingyan pointed her middle finger at An Zihao in disdain. Seeing this, An Zihao was immediately enraged as he walked over and smashed Chen Xingyan's game console into smithereens. You don't act like a living person. What a waste of resources. Chen Xingyan. An Zihao had no intention of continuing the conversation with Chen Xingyan. He turned around and said, in a couple of days, another artist will be moving in. When that time comes, you guys should take care of each other. I'm not used to living with people I don't know well. Fine. Give me $20 million first. Otherwise, you can create some value for me. Chen Xingyan. Since you don't want to go to the Savage Wars, I will get someone else to do it. If you don't want to go, there are plenty of people who are willing to. So, you can continue being a stunt double. After speaking, An Zihao turned around and left the apartment, leaving Chen Xingyan all alone with a stuffy chest. She had the urge to punch someone. An Zihao was, after all, a top manager in the past. So when it came to dealing with a stubborn and mischievous person like Chen Xingyan, he naturally had his methods. However, this little brat had no idea of her value, and was still wasting her youth. If she had entered this industry unconsciously, why had she been an extra for so many years? A stunt double. Did she really like this dangerous and unrewarding profession that much? Hua Wenfeng was making a fuss about getting a DNA test done. So early in the morning, she called Father Mo over to get a sample from Mo Ting. At that time, Tongning was still resting. So the person who opened the door was naturally Bai Lihua. The two had never looked at each other in private before. For some reason, when Father Mo looked into Bai Lihua's eyes, he felt there was a complicated look in her eyes that made him feel suspicious. I've seen you since yesterday. You are? I am a servant that Tongning hired. Bai Lihua replied with her head lowered. After answering, she turned around. Have we met somewhere before? Father Mo asked naturally. No, Bai Lihua replied firmly. If she had a choice, she would rather they had never met. In that case, can you give me a sample of Mo Ting's hair? Sorry, no. Bai Lihua's tone was a lot colder. Father Mo glanced at Bai Lihua and thought that she wanted some benefits. So he pulled out some money and handed it to her. Is this enough? Bai Lihua looked at the cash in Father Mo's hands. At this moment, her eyes were filled with ridicule. Although many years had passed, the man in front of him did not know his real wife and colluded with a swindler to frame his son and daughter-in-law. Every time Bai Lihua thought of this, she couldn't help but feel a sense of ridicule. Nowadays, DNA tests can be faked. If you really wanted to prove something, you would have to go to the DNA test center with Mr. Mo. Who would believe a one-sided test? What do you mean? All of a sudden, Father Mo furrowed his brows. Did you think my wife would create a fake DNA test to fool others? I'm just stating the possibilities. He is indeed one of Tongning's people. He is wholeheartedly helping her. Seeing that Bai Lihua was picking on Hua Wenfeng, Father Mo's tone turned harsh. Why don't you remove your mask? Don't tell me you're the same as that performer, shameful? It's no wonder. That performer's heart is as evil as a snake. Anyone that she keeps by her side is obviously a jackal of the same tribe. We are all evil people. Only your wife is innocent. You and I both know who is right and who is wrong, Father Mo said angrily. Since you are just a servant, then get out of my way. At least, I am still Mo Ting's father. Bai Lihua did not respond. They had been married for so many years, yet this was the situation they were in. So she did not want to continue arguing with Father Mo. Instead, she gestured to the bodyguards with her chin. If they didn't chase Father Mo away now, what were they waiting for? The bodyguards immediately stepped forward and grabbed onto Father Mo. But before he could be thrown out of the house, Tongning's voice could be heard. Auntie Bai, give it to him. But, give it to him. Tongning walked over to the sofa and said in a calm tone, since father wants it, I naturally have to give it to him. What was so trustworthy about a DNA test done by Hua Wenfeng alone? Bai Lihua thought to herself. It seemed, even if she revealed her identity right now, Father Mo would only speak up for that woman. So she shouldn't place too much hope in him. So a DNA test was a must. Since Father Mo insisted and Tongning agreed, Bai Lihua had no choice but to head to the bathroom. A moment later, she handed Father Mo a toothbrush. Since Hua Wenfeng liked to do a DNA test so much, then she was going to let her do it. Tongning watched as Bai Lihua handed Father Mo the sample. But, after Father Mo left, she said, Auntie Bai, you didn't give him Ting's sample. I gave him my toothbrush, Bai Lihua replied straightforwardly. Tongning looked deeply into Bai Lihua's eyes. She did not say a word, but deep down, she couldn't help but praise Bai Lihua's actions. In that case, it looks like we're in for a good show. Although Father Mo had retrieved the sample, he was still thinking about what Bai Lihua had said to him. Wenfeng, do you know what Tongning's servant said to me? She said that even if we were to do a DNA test, no one would believe us. Because with the advancement of technology, DNA can be faked. After hearing this, Hua Wenfeng wanted to smash the house up again. That slut Tongning deserves to die a horrible death. Even her servant is so well trained. I'll immediately get someone to take the sample for testing and film the entire process. I need to prove my innocence. Seeing Hua Wenfeng's confident expression, Father Mo immediately hugged her. You didn't need to do this. I trust you no matter what. Old Mo, I'm already so old. Yet I'm still being treated like this by my daughter-in-law. Just the thought of it makes me angry. Now I've even been ruined by her. Does this mean that I'm going to live the rest of my life in fear? Don't be afraid, I will definitely get justice for you. A DNA test and a film to ensure the authenticity of the results. Do you really think that Ms. Hua won't tamper with the DNA? That night, Tongning asked calmly as she lay in Mo Ting's arms. However, there was a hint of a smile in her voice. Filming the entire process. It seems she is very confident in herself. Once the results are out, we will know whether she is fair or not. After all, they both knew that the sample that Hua Wenfeng took did not belong to Mo Ting. If that was the case, Hua Wenfeng would still receive a 99% positive result. All they could say was, they were completely convinced. If I think about it carefully, it will be a little funny, Tongning said as she waited for Hua Wenfeng to reveal the results. Chapter 638. Over the next couple of days, Hua Wenfeng took what she thought was Mo Ting's sample to the hospital's forensics department for testing. In front of Father Mo, she requested the forensics department to film the entire process and not let the sample leave the camera lens. Mrs. Mo, we are indeed unable to comply with your request, the forensics department replied. Seeing Hua Wenfeng's determination, Father Mo simply treated it like a mother that had been forced into a corner. So his heart ached for Hua Wenfeng's desire to regain her innocence. Wenfeng, it's been hard on you, Father Mo comforted. If I had known you would give birth to such an unfilial son, I wouldn't have stopped you from getting rid of him. Now he has become so lawless and has even found himself a poisonous wife. Thinking of this, Father Mo felt a little frustrated. So he pulled out his phone and gave Elder Mo a phone call. He then told Father Mo everything that Tongning had done during this period of time. Father, Wenfeng and I have been forced into a corner by this woman. If you don't step out and teach us a lesson, the Mo family is going to be destroyed by her. Elder Mo wasn't retarded, nor was he deaf or blind. Although he didn't personally witness what had happened to the Mo family during this period of time, he was well aware of it. Especially the incident that had appeared on the big screen in Global Square 2 days ago. He knew better than anyone what kind of person Tongning was. When will the results of the DNA test be out? Elder Mo remained silent for a moment. Originally, he wanted to stay out of the matter, but since things had already gotten to this point, if he didn't step out and say a word, it wouldn't be right. The hospital said it would be the day after tomorrow at the earliest. In that case, let's do it the day after tomorrow. I will visit Hyatt Regency then. It had been a long time since he had seen Tongning and his great-grandson. Elder Mo thought to himself. Father Mo had no idea what Elder Mo was thinking. He simply assumed that Elder Mo was still protecting his son. But he had no idea that Elder Mo had put in a lot of effort to understand Tongning's personality. So what if his own son was present? Elder Mo would only help the side that he felt was right. Otherwise, if both sides were close to each other, how could he settle the score? Wenfeng, I've already called Dad. He will definitely help us. Hua Wenfeng nodded her head. She had forgotten that the Mo family still had Elder Mo plus. Elder Mo was extremely protective of his own people. How could Tongning have a good ending after stirring up so much trouble? The day after tomorrow. Let's just wait and watch the show. And Zihao had mentioned that a newcomer would be arriving at the apartment in the next 2 days. At first, Chun Xingyan thought he was just joking. But who would have thought early that morning, a luxurious van arrived at the apartment. It was a girl the same age as her who had just won the National Youth MMA Championship. From the sound of it, the two girls were evenly matched. But this treatment was worlds apart. The apartment was split into 2 floors. She lived on the first floor, which was the guest room, while the master bedroom was upstairs. Sometimes, when Chun Xingyan was unhappy, she would go upstairs to lie down. The furnishings in her room were on a completely different level. Originally, she thought Zihao had left it for her so she could stay there from time to time. Who would have thought? And Zihao actually allowed the other party to move in. Are you Chun Xingyan? Hello, I am Annie. From now on, we will be roommates. The woman wasn't as tall as Chun Xingyan, but her figure was definitely well trained. However, Chun Xingyan didn't like the woman's smile. She couldn't tell if it was real or fake. So she did not extend her hand. Instead, she crossed her arms and sat down on the sofa. Hello. Annie did not respond. But Annie's assistant was furious as she questioned Chun Xingyan. Who do you think you are? Our Annie is greeting you because she thinks highly of you. Can't you tell that Mr. N values Annie more? You better not provoke me. Chun Xingyan warned as she picked up the repaired game console, without turning her head. I heard you were successful in your audition and had the opportunity to play the villain in an American film, but you rejected it. I'm sorry, Mr. N has already given this opportunity to our Annie. The assistant was not afraid of death as she threw herself at Chun Xingyan. Not only is she afraid of the camera, she is only a stunt double. Our Annie has never been a stunt double. What's the point? Making a wedding dress for someone else? From what I can see, you are only fit to make a wedding dress for someone else. That's enough, little 5. Don't speak nonsense. Only after he finished speaking did he ask them to stop talking nonsense. Chun Xingyan was used to these methods of ridicule, so he just smiled coldly. She's being rude to you. The assistant called little 5 yelled. It's okay. Mr. N gave Xingyan's resources to me. It's natural for her to feel uncomfortable. You are just too kind. Chun Xingyan continued to play with her joystick. She did not throw a tantrum because Nziheo was the main culprit behind all of this. Afterwards, Chen Xingyan gave Nziheo a phone call, but his phone was turned off. But was Chen Xingyan the one that was at a disadvantage? It didn't take long before night arrived. Chen Xingyan was cooking in the kitchen when Nziheo personally visited and took Annie out for dinner with the excuse that he was taking her to see the director. Chen Xingyan put down her bowl and chopsticks. It would be a lie to say that she felt comfortable. But at this time, Bai Lihua suddenly gave Chen Xingyan a phone call. Xing, do you want to come to Hyatt Regency? Mom will cook something delicious for you. Yes, Chen Xingyan emphasized with a wrong tone. It didn't take long before Chen Xingyan hailed a cab and arrived at Hyatt Regency. Bai Lihua was already waiting for her at the entrance. Although Chen Xingyan still felt a little uncomfortable about entering someone else's home, it was still better than staying in the apartment. Xiao Ning and Mr. Mo are both very nice people. You don't need to feel awkward. Okay. Chen Xingyan lowered her head and followed Bai Lihua into Hyatt Regency. At this moment, Tongning was sitting in the living room reading through her script. As soon as she spotted Chen Xingyan standing behind Bai Lihua, she couldn't help but say gently, I've long heard from your mother that you are a mischievous spirit. You don't need to act so serious. I don't eat people up. Chen Xingyan lifted her head. As soon as she saw Tongning, the legend of Beijing and the person that everyone loved to talk about, she couldn't help but feel a sense of respect. So, she scratched her head awkwardly. I'm not used to it. Tongning let out a gentle laugh as she lowered her head and continued to flip through the script in her hands. At this time, Chen Xingyan approached her and knelt down beside her. Do you need a stunt double? Xing. Bai Lihua yelled. Chen Xingyan had never felt that she was inferior to others. She naturally treated Tongning as a senior. This made communication easier and more comfortable for Tongning. So she asked back, Isn't it good to follow Zaheo? Chapter 639. Chen Xingyan did not say a word. She simply looked at Tongning with a wronged look in her eyes. Xing, get up first. It's fine, Auntie Bai. I've actually liked her from the start. Tongning replied straightforwardly. She had never been biased when it came to judging people because she believed in magnetism. If two people were attracted to each other, they would definitely be fated to be friends. So Tongning did not feel that Chen Xingyan should follow any rules. Chen Xingyan did not respond as she sat down on the sofa. Seeing this, Tongning did not pursue the matter any further. She simply replied, I don't need a stunt double. Why not? Because I've always done things on my own. But it's very dangerous. And Zaheo was confused. Did Tongning need to put on a show for others to see? Firstly, you should know better than anyone that being a stunt double is a very dangerous job. Your body and life are not guaranteed. I don't care if others need it or not, but I'm certain that I don't need it. Tongning replied in seriousness. Secondly, the role belongs to you and the script belongs to you. Only when you step into the role yourself will you know how it feels and how you feel. There are some things that can't be imagined. If a character doesn't complete a scene on their own, then don't you feel that their life is incomplete? After hearing Tongning's words, Chen Xingyan fell silent for a few seconds. Although she felt that Tongning was being too serious, she liked it. I don't like people that follow the rules. So, can you tell me why you want to be my stunt double? Chen Xingyan thought for a moment. She was used to being shameless. Why would she need to protect that bitch's reputation? So Chen Xingyan explained everything that Nziheo had done to Tongning and Bai Lihua. He included how he smashed her video game console, and how he found a newcomer to bully her. He told her everything. After hearing everything, Tongning felt that Nziheo didn't seem like someone like that. But on the other hand, she wasn't immune to things like this. She couldn't stand to see someone she knew being bullied, even if the person that had bullied her was her good friend. Since you can't continue, then don't do it, Bai Lihua replied. But that jerk has written it in the contract. If I break it, I will have to pay him $20 million. Are you worse than Annie? Tongning asked straightforwardly. She didn't care if it was $20 million or not. Are you kidding me? I've been in the entertainment industry since I was 7. Chun Xingyan was obviously unconvinced. Plus, when it came to martial arts, Annie only learned mixed martial arts, yet she knew all sorts of tricks. If they were to really fight, she would never admit defeat. Then why do you bear it? If you are really as fearless as you say, then you shouldn't let the people that look down on you live a good life. To put it bluntly, I don't like people robbing me. Even if I don't like it, it depends on whether I want it or not. If it was me, if I really didn't want to go abroad, then I wouldn't go. But the opportunity. I'm sorry I don't want it, but it won't be yours. After speaking, Tongning paused for a moment and looked at Chun Xingyan again. In this industry, people always support the strong and step on the weak. Even if you are only a stunt double, you should be the best stunt double. Only then will you have the right to say no to others. When that time comes, even if you don't agree with Zihao and don't want to follow his arrangements, even if he sends someone else to anger you, you don't have to care. Chun Xingyan listened to Tongning quietly. From what she knew, Tongning was a quiet person that relied on righteousness to get to where she was. Especially at the beginning, when Tongning mentioned her opinion of stunt doubles. At that time, Chun Xingyan felt that Tongning was a normal person. But after hearing the rest of her words, why did Chun Xingyan feel like Tongning was a little cool? Above all, Tongning's words ignited a fire in her heart. In the entertainment industry, defeating the unknown is exciting. Chun Xingyan understood what Tongning meant. If she wanted to look down on something, she needed to make it look up to it first. Seeing that Chun Xingyan understood, Tongning did not say anything else. She simply asked, "Did you say that Zihao smashed your video game console? I have the latest German video game console here. There are only 2 in the entire world. One is a test product and the other is at home. You can take it home in a moment as a gift." Chun Xingyan looked at Tongning as they smiled at each other. "Is it fun?" "I'm not sure if it's fun or not, but I'm sure it won't be broken." "In that case, I'll gladly accept." Chun Xingyan did not hold back. Seeing that the two were like old friends, Bai Lihua felt a lot more at ease. Originally, she was afraid that Chun Xingyan would anger Tongning, but she was overthinking things. Tongning was good at manipulating people's hearts. No matter what kind of person stood in front of her, they would have no choice but to lower their heads. Chun Xingyan wasn't stupid. In fact, she was extremely smart. She knew why Tongning had given her a video game console. So, while Zihao was driving Annie home, Chun Xingyan was sitting in the living room playing with Tongning's video game console. Zihao was annoyed. "You got another one?" Chun Xingyan replied arrogantly. "Why do you care? It looks fun." Annie was envious and wanted to fight for Chun Xingyan's favor. She wanted Chun Xingyan to know her place. So, she pretended to be weak and spoke with a hint of desire. "I'll give it to you another day." Zihao was used to seeing fights between artists, so he naturally understood Annie's motive. But Chun Xingyan smiled as she crossed her arms. "I'm sorry, but there's only one in the entire world. Don't tell me Miss N wants the one in my hands?" "Mr. N." Seeing that Zihao was serious, Chun Xingyan replied, "I'm sorry, Tongning gave it to me. Why don't you ask her for it?" Hearing this, Zihao clenched his teeth. This brat. She finally knew how to be arrogant. Most importantly, what was Tongning getting involved in this? "Tongning? Do you know Tongning?" Annie's eyes burned with jealousy. "Go get some rest. It's getting late," Zihao reminded Annie. He felt it was time to stop playing such childish games. However, as soon as the two women turned around, Chun Xingyan suddenly stopped them. "Wait. What is it?" Zihao had already reached the door. But as soon as he heard Annie's voice, he turned around. "I'll take the script for the Savage Wars," Chun Xingyan said as she raised her eyebrows and looked at Annie. Chun Xingyan raised her eyebrows and looked at Annie. Seeing Annie's unhappy expression, she added, "Tongning is right. There's no reason not to take something that belongs to you." Chapter 640. Xingyan, you've already rejected him. Now that you're accepting it again, it doesn't seem right. Annie was extremely timid in front of Zihao. In fact, she even stuttered a little. Pretending to be weak, especially when a beautiful woman was pretending to be weak, Would most men not be able to stand the pitiful expression on their faces and give in to her? But when it came to people like Zihao and Emoting, only they knew how disgusting a woman like this was. Especially since Annie thought that Chen Xingyan would tolerate it for the sake of her pride. However, Chen Xingyan wasn't the type to let her pride get the better of her. She was willful and arrogant. She did whatever she wanted. Her pride had nothing to do with what she did. On top of that, she was now able to enjoy Annie's acting, so Chen Xingyan's heart was filled with excitement. She thought to herself, listening to Tongning was indeed the right thing to do. What's not right about it? I have $10 on me. Sometimes, when it takes up space, I'll just put it somewhere else and say that I don't want it anymore. But just because of that, doesn't that mean the $10 isn't mine anymore? Chen Xingyan used a hooligan analogy. But in Zihao's mind, this analogy was not valid. But Mr. N has already spoken to the producer that he wants to replace me. He can always say he wants to replace me. After all, I was the one that was originally booked for this role. Plus, if he can't even do something like this, then what's the point of being a manager? Why don't you let me do it instead? Chen Xingyan rolled her eyes at the two men. As soon as Chen Xingyan said this, even Zihao was speechless. This brat was merciless when it came to scolding others. Mr. N. Annie couldn't win against Chen Xingyan, so she quickly looked for help. She was certain that Zihao would help her. Zihao originally wanted to leave, but after hearing Chen Xingyan's words, he suddenly decided not to leave. He turned around and sat down on the sofa. That's right, Chen Xingyan is right. Annie was shocked. Mr. N. But Annie's words aren't unreasonable. Chen Xingyan, the resources originally belong to you, but the opportunity belongs to everyone. If you say you don't want it, the opportunity will naturally slip away. This is something that neither you, Annie, nor I can control. So it's not appropriate for you to use your money as an analogy. Chen Xingyan wished she could bite Zihao to death. Annie couldn't help but relax a little. So, since you said that you don't want to be a stunt double even if you die, then as your manager, it's only reasonable for me to optimize my resources. So, I will still make a phone call to the production crew. As for who they choose in the end, it's not up to you or me to decide. Chen Xingyan glared at Zihao but didn't say another word. She put down the game controller and turned to return to her room. Damn man, stinking man. Go to hell. Chen Xingyan treated the pillow as Zihao. Apart from punching and kicking it, she also threw it on the ground and stomped on it. You're heartless, so I'm heartless. Go get some rest, Zihao said to Annie after seeing Chen Xingyan return to her room. Thank you, Mr. And Annie thought Zihao was trying to help her, so her smile turned even sweeter. However, behind her back, Zihao had already given the production crew a phone call and informed them that Chen Xingyan had accepted the role and agreed to play the villain of the Savage Wars. He understood Chen Xingyan's temper, so he did not mention to the production crew that Chen Xingyan had rejected the role. Plus, the person that Annie went to see was not the director of the Savage Wars. From start to finish, he simply wanted to provoke Chen Xingyan. But it was obvious that Chen Xingyan was more willing to listen to Tongning due to her rebellious nature. Although it had nothing to do with his efforts, at least the outcome was good. This brat was currently in her room. She must be itching to tear him apart and eat him alive. The next morning, Chen Xingyan stepped out of her room after a good night's sleep. To her surprise, she saw Annie's assistant, Little Five, playing with a poodle in the living room. The dog was very lively as it ran around the living room. In the end, Little Five caught up to the dog and placed it on top of Chen Xingyan's game console. Chen Xingyan walked over to Little Five and glared at her coldly. Little Five knew that the game console belonged to Chen Xingyan, but she felt that Chen Xingyan was lying and that it wasn't a gift from Tongning. So she decided to bully him with the dog. Chen Xingyan did not say a word. He simply pulled out his phone and made a phone call in front of Little Five. After the call connected, he pressed the speaker button. Tongning Jia, are you still resting? I'm reading a script. What's wrong? Tongning asked. Can you tell me how much the game console you gave me is worth, and where I can get it repaired? It was gifted to me by a friend of Ting's. It's a German handmade game console, And it's the latest product from a famous video game company. I heard it's worth over $3 million. It's impossible to get it repaired in China, so it needs to be sent directly to Germany, Tongning replied honestly. Of course, as soon as little Five heard this, her entire body began to tremble. Not only did Chen Xingyan know Tongning, he had actually gifted her a game console. And this game console was worth over $3 million. Okay, thank you, Ningjia. Sorry to disturb your rest. After speaking, Chen Xingyan hung up the phone. Before little Five could react, she took a photo of the toy standing on top of the game console. Xiaowu immediately threw the dog on the ground and stuttered. What? What are you doing? Evidence collection. Chen Xingyan said straightforwardly as she gestured to little Five to look at the controller. Haven't you noticed that your dog has already bitten through my controller? You heard what Tongning said just now. This console is worth around $3 million, and there's no way to repair it in China. Tell me, what should we do now? This. Little Five was so scared that his face turned pale. He stammered, no. There are photos in my phone. Do you think you can still deny it? Little Five was so shocked that she immediately knelt on the floor and begged. Miss Chen, I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't know Tongning really gave it to me, and I didn't know it was so expensive. I'm just a worker. I have no money. Can you let me off this time? Chen Xingyan looked down at the kneeling little Five and glared at her. Get up. Leave this matter to Zihao. If he says you don't need to pay, I won't hold you accountable. Annie was originally resting in her room. When she heard a commotion outside, she immediately stood up to check. Seeing little Five kneeling in front of Chen Xingyan, her eyes immediately turned red. Chen Xingyan, how did I offend you? How could you treat him like this? Chapter 641. Chen Xingyan couldn't be bothered talking to Annie, so she gave Zihao a phone call. Something has happened. Come over and deal with it. And Zihao had just left Director Chen Feng's home when he received a phone call from Chen Xingyan. He immediately rushed over to the apartment. As soon as he arrived, he saw Chen Xingyan sitting on the sofa with her legs crossed while Annie comforted the crying little Five. Mr. N, you're here at the right time. Hurry and help me talk to little Five. He broke Xingyan's game console, and Xingyan said it costs $3 million to fix it. Little Five can't afford it, so all he can do is sell his home. Chen Xingyan and Zihao both knew that Annie was pretending to be weak, but Annie knew better than anyone else. Zihao glanced at the game console, and then looked at Chen Xingyan. As their gazes met, Chen Xingyan's eyes were clearly telling him to try and help them. Of course, Zihao was cunning as he asked straightforwardly, how did the game console break? It was. Someone jumped around on my game console while hugging their dog, Chen Xingyan shrugged. Chen Xingyan shrugged her shoulders. I already told you yesterday, this was a gift from Tongning. Unfortunately, some people thought I was lying and thought I stole the limelight from their boss. So they wanted to play around. But they accidentally messed things up. Chen Xingyan understood little Five better than anyone, so she wasn't going to give them any face. Little Five, is this what happened? Mr. and Little Five and I don't have much of a background, so it's impossible for us to fork out a few $1 million. So, I'm willing to return the role in the Savage Wars to Xingyan. I hope Xingyan won't blame Little Five. Little Five is still young and doesn't understand much. Xingyan, please don't take it to heart. Chen Xingyan thought to herself. Do I need you to let me go? It's reasonable for you to return something that originally belonged to me. Plus, it's reasonable for your people to compensate for the damage they caused. Who allowed you to use something that belonged to me to compensate for my losses? Chen Xingyan asked straightforwardly. Don't turn a good character into such a disgusting thing. Characters are characters, and game consoles are game consoles. And Zihao, what do you say? The game console. I'll take it back to the factory and have it fixed in Germany. There's no need for compensation, and Zihao said as he crossed his arms and looked at the game console. Annie and Little Five heaved a sigh of relief. But Little Five can no longer do this job. Annie doesn't have any power yet, and you're already bullying her. Then, if she becomes famous one day, are you going to look down on me? And Zihao said coldly to little Five. Annie and Xiaowu were stunned at the same time. Mr. N, I will find you a new assistant. What about you, Chen Xingyan? Is there anything else to say? Umph. Chen Xingyan scoffed without saying a word. At least, and Zihao had fired little Five. If you're going to find an assistant, do it properly. Don't find someone with too many tricks up their sleeves. Do you really think I'm a pushover that anyone can bully? Chen Xingyan said as she threw the game console at Zihao. You said it yourself. Go and fix it. And Zihao held onto the game console and raised an eyebrow at Chen Xingyan. After all, little Five was in the wrong, so Annie was no longer in the position to argue on her behalf. All she could do was watch as little Five left. She clenched her fists and swore to herself that she would definitely impress Zihao and bring little Five back to her side one day. Has the production team given us an answer? Chen Xingyan asked. Now that the matter had been resolved, she began to care about her role. And Zihao glanced at the two and shook his head. The production is still considering it. It's possible that the two of you won't accept it. You need to be prepared. Okay. Chen Xingyan nodded her head and returned to her room. However, Annie looked extremely wronged as her eyes filled with tears. Mr. N, you were indeed in the wrong and Xingyan caught you in the act. There's nothing much to say, you need to endure it. And Zihao replied straightforwardly. As for the role, the production is currently considering it. You need to be patient. At this time, Chen Xingyan assumed that Zihao was completely fair, so she swallowed her pain. However, after Zihao left, she pulled out her phone and gave her cousin a phone call. Brother, can you help me find out if Director Matt has decided on me for the Savage Wars? The man had some connections in the industry, so after hearing his cousin's request, he naturally had to lend a hand. Don't worry, I'll immediately help you find out and give you an answer very soon. However, if he were to give an answer like this, it was going to cause another uproar. A day later, Hua Wenfeng finally received the DNA report from the hospital. Seeing the results, her eyes filled with tears as she handed it to Father Mo. I can finally prove my innocence. Silly, you were innocent to begin with, Father Mo said as he held onto Hua Wenfeng's shoulder. I'll give Father a phone call right now. When he arrives, we'll head to Hyatt Regency together to demand an explanation. Okay. Hua Wenfeng probably thought that with Father Mo's trust and Elder Mo's support, she wouldn't be at a disadvantage if she went to Hyatt Regency like she usually did. This time, she wanted to see Tongning suffer. But, as soon as Elder Mo received a phone call from Father Mo, his expression was the same as his own. Oh, is this the result of the DNA report? Father, why don't you care? He should have been indifferent about this matter. Yet, just because Tongning appeared to be suspicious, he insisted on doing a DNA test. What kind of mother would do that? After all, this was not the point of conflict. So, Elder Mo was extremely indifferent towards this result. That's enough talking. Come and pick me up. It's been a while since I've seen Tongning. As soon as Father Mo heard this, he immediately led Hua Wenfeng and Elder Mo to Hyatt Regency in a grandiose manner. In reality, Tongning had already lost her patience from waiting. Hua Wenfeng's efficiency wasn't very good, however. Tongning never expected that Elder Mo would follow along. As usual, Auntie Bai opened the front door, and Tongning's bodyguards were still there. As soon as they entered the living room, Tongning immediately stood up and offered her seat to Elder Mo. Grandfather. Elder Mo scoffed as he sat down beside Tongning. He had no intention of saying anything. Meanwhile, Hua Wenfeng threw the DNA report at Tongning's face. See for yourself. Chapter 642. The DNA test report did not land on Tongning's face because Elder Mo blocked it. Wenfeng, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't touch me. Father. That's because you don't know how much this actress has crossed the line. Hua Wenfeng said as she leaned against Elder Mo's leg. Who are you calling an actress? Elder Mo furrowed his brows. Father, this woman actually said that I am not Mo Ting's mother. In a fit of anger, I went to get a DNA test done. I can't take this lying down, Father. After speaking, Hua Wenfeng stood up in agitation. She pointed at Tongning and said in a shrill voice, Since everyone is here today, let's settle this once and for all. Tongning, I won't hold it against you for bullying me and slandering me, but the fact that you said I am not Mo Ting's mother is too hurtful. So, what do you want to do? Elder Mo asked. Father, this woman can't continue to stay in the Mo family. She will only worsen the conflict between us. Think about it. Before she married into the family, our family was harmonious and never blushed with each other. This is all because of her. I want to kick her out. Elder Mo did not say a word, but his eyes were filled with annoyance. Meanwhile, Tongning walked over to Elder Mo's side and picked up the DNA test report. She looked at it carefully as if she was reading it word by word. Ms. Hua, aren't you making a big deal out of nothing? However, before you did the DNA test, I simply said it casually. I didn't really think you weren't Mo Ting's mother. But, after you did the DNA test, I began to have my doubts. Tongning placed the 99.9% paternity test report on the table and lifted her eyes to look at Hua Wenfeng. Otherwise, why would you fake it? What do you mean? Hua Wenfeng stared into Tongning's eyes. What are you trying to say? I think I've made myself very clear. You have faked this report. Hua Wenfeng was furious. Hua Wenfeng was so angry that her chest heaved up and down. I have always been Mo Ting's mother. Why would I need to fake it? You slut, don't make irresponsible remarks. Can you guarantee that this report is accurate? Tongning asked in seriousness. Of course. Even if it was tested 100 times, the result would not change. Do you think I'm like you? You're so fond of scheming. Madam Hua, I will ask you one last time. Are you sure of the authenticity of this DNA report? You bitch, you're indeed difficult to deal with. Previously, you accused Wenfeng of not being Mo Ting's biological mother, and tried to drive a wedge between mother and son. Now that Wenfeng has presented us with the DNA test, you're accusing her of falsifying it. Let me tell you, we just received the report. There's no way we could have tampered with it. Seeing that Tongning refused to admit her mistakes, Father Mo pointed to her nose and started cursing. That's impossible. Tongning repeated these 3 words in a firm manner. You. Father Mo was furious as he reached out his hand to give Mo Ting a slap. But he was stopped by the bodyguards. Tongning sneered as she looked at Father Mo. She then picked up the report and said to everyone, Why would I say it's impossible? Because the sample that Auntie Bai gave you did not belong to Mo Ting. The toothbrush belonged to Auntie Bai. Everyone in the Mo family, including the bodyguards, knows about it. Are you telling me that the relationship between the two of you is 99.9%? Isn't that a bit too funny? After hearing Tongning's words, Father Mo and Hua Wenfeng were stunned. How? How is that possible? Why is it not possible? Auntie Bai simply wanted to teach you a lesson after seeing how you kept causing trouble for me. Who would have thought that you would actually fake the report? No. It's not like that. I didn't. This time, Hua Wenfeng did not tamper with the report. But how could she explain the results of the DNA test? No, you must have spouted nonsense. This is Mo Ting's to begin with. It's up to you whether you want to believe me or not. Things like this can be exposed with a second test. Why would I need to hide it? Tongning threw the report back at Hua Wenfeng. You said you didn't fake it. Then, how do you explain the results of this report? Hua Wenfeng's eyes grew wide as she took a few steps back. I didn't. The truth is right in front of us. If you didn't have a guilty conscience, why would you tamper with the DNA test? Tongning, don't be so aggressive. Father Mo saw Hua Wenfeng being pushed around, so he immediately stepped forward to protect her. Seeing Hua Wenfeng being forced into a corner, Father Mo immediately stepped forward to protect her. This report doesn't count. Let's do another test. Tongning sneered without saying a word. Meanwhile, Father Mo turned to look at Elder Mo. Father, what do you say? Are you going to sit back and watch as this woman bullies your son and daughter-in-law? Right now, I want to know why Wenfeng tampered with the DNA test. Elder Mo asked straightforwardly. Father, you can't just listen to Tongning's side of the story and choose to believe her over your son and daughter-in-law. Father Mo said angrily. Father, I am your son. Are you going to turn against your son and daughter-in-law for the sake of an outsider? But compared to Hua Wenfeng, I am indeed more willing to believe in Tongning. Elder Mo shrugged innocently. Father. Enough. Elder Mo's sudden shout finally made everyone quiet down. Afterwards, Elder Mo stood up and walked over to Father Mo and Mrs. Mo. Seeing the two of you makes me lose all my face. Who would do a DNA test just because they were angry? If the media finds out, do you want everyone to think that Mo Ting has an alternate identity? Let's not talk about the incident at Global Square anymore. As an elder, isn't it bad enough that you framed, poisoned, cursed, schemed and wronged your daughter-in-law? Even if an animal bit your own child, you wouldn't distort the truth, would you? Are the two of you worse than animals? Elder Mo questioned the two men standing in the living room. Don't think that just because Mo Ting is your child, he has to listen to you. Since the two of you are my descendants, does that mean I can order you around? If that's the case, then I'll tell you to immediately get a divorce and get Hua Wenfeng out of my sight. What do you think? Father Mo looked at Elder Mo in shock. I'm not going to make a move today, and I can't be bothered to hit you two old fogies. You've never done anything well, yet you dare to cause a scene here? What is there to cause a scene about? What right do you have to cause a scene here? Chapter 643. Don't you feel embarrassed that you're acting like this in front of so many people? How dare you ask me to uphold justice? If I was also an unreasonable old man, what would you have done to me? Father Mo asked as he approached the two women. You've never fulfilled your responsibilities as a parent, yet you have the audacity to ask Mo Ting to do things for you. Who gave you the confidence to do this? Hua Wenfeng, stop stirring up trouble for me. From the moment you changed your name and refused to acknowledge your ancestors, I no longer wanted you as my daughter-in-law. In fact, I don't even want my useless son anymore. Who do you think you are? Just because you've learned a little bit of technology, you can look down on this and that. If you weren't so old, I would have slapped you across the face a long time ago. Father Mo and Hua Wenfeng's faces alternated between green and white. They had no words to refute. Who do you want to kick out? This is Mo Ting's home. Even your luxurious place was bought by Mo Ting. Aren't you ashamed to chase someone out? Father. Don't call me father, Elder Mo ordered. From now on, Mo Ting doesn't need to call you father either. Since you're so arrogant and look down on your son, daughter-in-law and father, from today onwards, you will follow Hua Wenfeng's surname, Hua. You don't need to use the surname Mo anymore. I can tell you've been mesmerized by this vixen for many years. After hearing Elder Mo's words, Father Mo and Hua Wenfeng were both shocked as their hearts began to panic. After all, Elder Mo's authority was inviolable. Even someone as heartless as Hua Wenfeng had no choice but to admit defeat in front of Elder Mo. However, she never imagined that the relationship between Elder Mo and Tongning would be so deep and good. Tongning, from now on, if you see these two causing a scene here, don't hold back. Just get the bodyguards to beat them up. Whether they die or get crippled, they deserve it. This is what grandfather said. If anything happens, grandfather will take responsibility. Elder Mo obviously felt he wasn't ruthless enough, so he continued to speak up for Tongning. Don't think that just because they're being polite to you two jerks, they're actually afraid of you. Mo Xiaoyuan, after we get home, you better give me a reason as to why Hua Wenfeng falsified the DNA test report. If you can't give me a reason, you can get a divorce. There is no room for negotiation. Father Mo never imagined that he would be taught a lesson by Elder Mo in front of so many people. In fact, he was humiliated in front of so many people. Hua Wenfeng was angry, but she did not dare to say anything. Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not dare to make a sound because Elder Mo was standing in front of them righteously. Dad, what kind of dad wants his son to get a divorce? Then what are you doing here? What do you think you're doing here? Hearing this question, Father Mo fell silent. That would be like slapping himself in the face. Father, you can say whatever you want. I didn't fake the DNA report. Hua Wenfeng continued to be stubborn. If you don't believe me, I can use my life to prove my innocence. Stop talking about death in front of me. You won't scare me. If you die, the worst that can happen is that you've committed suicide. It has nothing to do with any of us. I'm sure you know better than anyone whether it's worth it or not. Hua Wenfeng was infuriated, but there was nothing she could do. The old man had already stopped her from putting on a show. After all, he had been an experienced actress for so many years. Hua Wenfeng's little tricks had already been used many times in her dramas. If there's nothing else, then get lost. Just looking at you makes me angry. Father Mo was humiliated, but there was nothing he could do. All he could do was glare at Tongning as he supported the frustrated Hua Wenfeng and left. As for the others, they were secretly laughing at the two of them in their hearts. What did it mean to shoot oneself in the foot? These two were acting with their own strength. Grandfather, you didn't need to do this. After the couple left, Tongning helped Elder Mo sit down on the sofa. After all, I was also at fault. Stop pretending. Don't we see too many people like this on TV? I really don't want to admit that he's my own son. It's so embarrassing. Elder Mo scoffed. From now on, if these two cause trouble again, you don't need to hold back. If they die, I'll take responsibility. Grandfather. I'm really angry. Elder Mo took a deep breath. He was disappointed with Father Mo for not living up to his expectations. When did that rascal become so unable to differentiate right from wrong? Grandfather. If I hadn't done this, did you think that Mo Ting would have stayed in the study room without showing his face? Elder Mo was well aware of how much Mo Ting cared about Tongning. Of course, as her grandfather, he also doted on Tongning. Tongning smiled and did not say another word. She knew that Elder Mo had always been a man of steel. This time, Bai Lihua did not show her face. She simply watched from a hidden corner. In fact, she even watched from the window as Hua Wenfeng was carried out by Father Mo. She struggled and yelled. I didn't fake anything. The DNA test was real. Old Mo, trust me. I really didn't fake anything. This was the first time that Bai Lihua felt that Hua Wenfeng's expression was so sincere that she couldn't help but believe that she was telling the truth. Today was just a small test. From now on, there were more exciting days waiting for Hua Wenfeng and Mo Xiaoyuan. Meanwhile, Zihao received the final notification from the production crew. They immediately sent him a contract. Needless to say, the role still belonged to Chen Xingyan. That night, Zihao sat calmly on the sofa in the living room. He looked at the two women with a serious expression as he handed the contract to Chen Xingyan. I've said it before, I can't influence the final decision of the production crew. They have decided to use Chen Xingyan. Annie, you need to accept this result. Annie was of course upset, but Zihao had already used the production crew as a shield, so there was nothing she could say. With tears in her eyes, she turned around and returned to her room. After receiving the contract, Chen Xingyan flipped through it carelessly. In reality, she did not care about the contents. Are you satisfied? Zihao had been biased towards Chen Xingyan the entire time, but he couldn't let this brat see through him. I can only say that I'm more capable than others. Chen Xingyan held up the contract proudly. Hey, if you give me the contract this time, your little sweetheart is going to be angry. Why are you acting like you're the one who got the best deal? I'm just worried about you, Chen Xingyan said before she placed a kiss on the contract and took it away. However, not long after, Annie received a phone call from her cousin. My dear cousin, from what I know, Director Matt has only invited Chen Xingyan. He has never even heard of your name. Chapter 644. That's impossible. Mr. N said that my chances were the same as Chen Xingyan's. How could Matt not have heard of my name? Why don't you ask him again? Annie was anxious. She felt like she had been struck by lightning. She never imagined that Zihao had set her up behind her back. I've already asked him clearly. He has never heard of your name before. This is the truth. I'm still busy, so I won't talk to you any further. Cousin, help me find out what happened. I really want to know what happened, Annie said in a serious tone as tears welled up in her eyes. Hearing her cry, the man was put in a difficult position. But in the end he still agreed. Okay. Tell me everything that happened, and I'll help you find out later. After a while, Annie explained everything that had happened over the past few days to her cousin, including how she had been bullied over the past few days. After listening to everything patiently, the man finally shared his intuition with Annie. Little cousin, according to your brother's many years of experience, you should have been tricked by someone. Cousin. I don't quite understand. Why are you so stupid? I need you to explain yourself. What I mean is, your manager has never fought for a chance for you. He simply used this as an excuse to teach your opponent a lesson. No, Mr. N treats me very well, Annie retorted. Think about it carefully and see if this is the case. After speaking, the man hung up the phone and Annie fell into deep thought. She never expected that Nziheo would treat her in such a way. So, she immediately pulled out her phone to ask Nziheo for an explanation. But, if this was really the case, wouldn't she be put at a disadvantage if she went straight to Nziheo? After careful consideration, she decided to hold back. The next morning, Chun Xingyan was looking at a contract in the living room. As soon as Annie stepped out of her bedroom and saw Chun Xingyan's back, she couldn't help but approach her and ask, Xingyan, you and Mr. N must have known each other for a long time, right? Chun Xingyan felt like the sun had risen from the west. How could Annie speak to her in such a serious manner without a hint of pity? I met him a little earlier than you. I can tell that he treats you very well. Fine, Chun Xingyan humphed as she pointed her middle finger at the air. Which eye of yours saw this? But no matter how you deny it, it's still good. Chun Xingyan suddenly felt it was impossible to communicate with Annie at this moment. If there's nothing else, can you not disturb me while I'm reading the contract? Just as the couple were speechless, Nziheo knocked on the door and entered the apartment. Without even glancing at Chun Xingyan, he said to Annie, Pack up, there's an important audition. Annie froze for a moment, but she didn't feel happy at all. She felt like she could no longer trust Nziheo anymore. What? You don't want to go? Mr. N, please wait for me. After speaking, Annie stood up and returned to her room. She quickly changed her clothes. Today's tolerance was for tomorrow's pride, Annie told herself in her heart. Meanwhile, in the living room, Nziheo watched as Chun Xingyan flipped through the contract. He couldn't help but laugh. Don't worry, sign the contract. I won't sell you out for the audition. That's hard to say. Chun Xingyan twirled the pen in her hand. It's better for me to be cautious around you. Whatever you want. Soon, Annie stepped out of her room dressed in a formal gown and followed behind Nziheo. Chun Xingyan watched as the two left without any expression. She simply continued to read through her contract without taking Annie seriously. A moment later, the couple boarded the van. Nziheo looked at the silent Annie and couldn't help but laugh. Why are you so quiet today? Are you still upset that you didn't get the role? A little. There's no need for that. Today's resource is on par with the Savage Wars. You should know that I went to the US to study for a period of time. During that time, I've built up a lot of connections in the US. So you need to cherish this opportunity, Nziheo said as he handed a script to Annie. This is the audition clip. Have a look first. Annie's eyes once again lit up with hope. Of course, there were two reasons why Nziheo arranged this. Firstly, he wanted to train Chun Xingyan, and secondly, he wanted to take Annie down a peg. He wanted her to know that her results at school were nothing. Is this better than Chun Xingyan's script? Nziheo looked at Annie. To be exact, there was a warning in his eyes. Annie, I treat all of you equally. However, you all have your own flaws and need to be polished. Okay, Mr. And after speaking, Annie calmed down and looked at the script Nziheo had given her. She couldn't be worse than Chun Xingyan in any way, especially when it came to status and background. Chun Xingyan was nothing. Of course, this was because she had no idea that Chun Xingyan had another identity. To ensure that there were no issues with the contract, Chun Xingyan directly brought it to Hyatt Regency for Tongning to look through. Don't worry, Nziheo may be training you, but he won't trick you in these important areas. Tongning put down the contract and winked at Chun Xingyan. But I don't actually want to go overseas. Who told you that I wanted to go overseas? Tongning raised an eyebrow. The contract has already stated that the filming location will be in Beijing. The crew of the Savage Wars wants to borrow some of our special sets for filming. Okay, since you've clarified everything, you should go home. Don't disturb your Ningjia. She's been very tired these past few days, Bai Lihua said after seeing Chen Xingyan's mischievous behavior. It's fine, Auntie Bai. Go ahead. Mr. Mo has already instructed me to remind you to get some rest upstairs. Hearing that it was Mo Ting's instructions, Tongning had no choice but to stand up and head upstairs. In that case, help me take care of Xingyan. After speaking, Tongning entered the bedroom. At this time, Mo Ting was already lying in bed as he waved at her. Come here. Her steps were light as Mo Ting helped her sit down on the bed. When did you come back? Why aren't you working at Hairue? I missed you. I came back halfway through. I was afraid I wouldn't be by your side when you had an afternoon nap. Huh. Tongning was confused. I've had a little cramp over the past few days. Mo Ting said as he looked at Tongning's legs. Did you think that if you didn't tell me, I wouldn't know? Chapter 645. It's not a big deal. Pregnant women are always a little stressed. Tongning leaned against Mo Ting's chest and breathed in his unique scent. But for you to notice. I am still very happy. If you still have cramps this afternoon, let me know. I'll give you a massage and you'll feel better. Okay, hubby. Tongning closed her eyes and fell asleep in Mo Ting's embrace. Perhaps it was because her lover was by her side, but Tongning did not have cramps and slept peacefully. When she woke up, she could still see Mo Ting in the same position as before. Tongning's heart ached a little as she sat up in his arms. She then twisted her body to place her pillow under Mo Ting's head. However, just as she bent over, Mo Ting opened his eyes and looked at her lovingly. You're awake? She wasn't sure why, but seeing Mo Ting like this, Tongning leaned over and kissed him. She sucked on his lower lip and kissed him endlessly. Mo Ting froze for a moment as his body tensed up. A moment later, he gently wrapped his arm around Tongning's shoulder and began to respond. It wasn't until they both found it hard to breathe that Mo Ting finally pulled away. Seeing this, Mo Ting maintained his awkward position and smiled at Tongning. Did you miss me? Tongning understood that Mo Ting had left out the word want, so her face turned slightly red. Let me take you to the shower. Tongning looked down at her stomach, but Mo Ting insisted on hugging her. Don't worry, I will be very gentle. I won't hurt you or the child. After a long time, it was impossible for a couple to not want to merge into each other's bodies. After all, they needed a sense of belonging. They needed to have each other in their hearts. In reality, Bai Lihua remembered the words that Hua Wenfeng shouted as she left Hyatt Regency. She didn't know why, but this time, she was willing to believe that Hua Wenfeng wasn't lying. In that case, she would have to reinterpret the DNA test results and explain why they were 99.9% related. In order to find out the truth, Bai Lihua needed to get a new sample of Hua Wenfeng's DNA. So, while she was cleaning the living room, she paid extra attention to whether or not Hua Wenfeng had left a strand of hair behind. Sometimes, there were some things that even she did not understand. Of course, DNA was only one aspect. She still needed to return to the Bei family to investigate the unknown reasons behind this. Perhaps it was God's blessing, but Bai Lihua managed to find Hua Wenfeng's hair in the living room. As Hua Wenfeng was the only one who had dyed her hair brown, it was easily recognizable with the naked eye. It didn't take long before Bai Lihua secretly sent samples of herself, Hua Wenfeng and Mo Ting to the hospital. She wanted to know the truth behind all of this. The next day, Bai Lihua asked for leave from Tongning and Mo Ting. Although Mo Ting allowed it, after Bai Lihua left he asked, "Don't you think there's anything suspicious about this Auntie Bai? Many of Aunt Bai's actions can't be explained, but she really didn't mean to harm us. Plus, you've already done your research. She is just an ordinary woman." "That's right," Tongning replied in seriousness. "Do you really think so?" Tongning looked at Mo Ting with deep meaning. The couple understood each other, so of course Tongning didn't think the same way. But there were some things that she still didn't understand and needed some time to understand. "If you're still worried, you can ask someone to follow her." Yesterday, I saw her carefully picking up Ms. Hua's hair and changing my toothbrush. What are you trying to say? Tongning's eyes grew big. Did she do another DNA test? We'll know when the results are out. So, all they could do now was wait. Since the truth is right next to us, let's transfer Lu Che back. I don't want you to be so tired. Plus, Long Jie needs a husband. Tongning suggested as she put down the glass of milk in her hands. He's already on his way back. In reality, Tongning didn't even need to say anything. The production crew that Nziheo took Annie to for an interview gave them a response the next day. In the end, they booked a 10-year-old girl to play the supporting female lead, because she was exactly what the crew needed. Annie once again missed out on a role. So, in a low mood, she approached her cousin for a drink. Inside the club, the sound system was deafening. Meanwhile, Annie was singing and dancing with a few men in a private room. From the looks of it, a place like this was a walk in the park. Cousin, I didn't get a role again. As soon as the man heard Annie's complaint, he looked at her suspiciously. According to Nziheo's current status, he wouldn't allow you to lose everything. Are you not serious? I'm extremely serious. But as long as there's a good opportunity, he will immediately give it to that woman. What can I do? Annie lay on the table, crying and laughing at the same time. I'm just a newcomer with no power or influence in the industry. My only backer is you. Cousin, can you understand the pain in my heart? I know someone like Nziheo. Logically speaking, he wouldn't be biased. After all, he's made quite a few models famous over the years. Could you be overthinking things? Annie shook her head as her eyes turned red. I'm not overthinking things. He only has eyes for Chun Xingyan. How about this? I'll do you a favor and help you test him. The man whispered in Annie's ear. I'm going to give it a try. I want to see if Nziheo has the intention to train you. If he doesn't, then you should leave as soon as possible. With your qualifications, you can definitely find a better manager. After hearing her cousin's words, Annie nodded her head. Her future was something that would last a lifetime. So she couldn't allow Nziheo to bully her like this. Nziheo doesn't know about our relationship, does he? No, he doesn't. That's good. Annie looked at the expression on Tongning's face and felt a little uneasy. She had no idea what her cousin was going to ask and how Nziheo was going to hand in his answer. Cousin, I think you're overthinking things. With your qualifications, you're many times better than Chun Xingyan. Plus, you've already won so many awards. Don't tell me you're afraid of an extra? Annie looked at the man with a deeper meaning. Okay, I'll help you find your next job. When the time comes, you can decide for yourself. Thank you, cousin. Whether Nziheo was biased or not, he was probably the only one who knew in his heart. In the middle of the night, Nziheo's living room was still lit with a yellow light. This was because he had dismantled Chun Xingyan's video game console and was currently learning how to reassemble it. Chapter 646. The next morning, Nziheo received a phone call from the boss of Hongchuan Film and Television inviting him to lunch. Nziheo had never interacted with anyone from Hongchuan before, but Hongchuan had a certain status in Beijing. So he arrived on time and used it as a way to build connections. Nziheo had no idea that this was a trap set up by Annie and her cousin. He simply thought they invited him because they wanted to work together. Annie's cousin's surname was Xia. Even though he said he was the boss of Hongchuan, it was only because he had shares in the company. The one who had the final say was actually his father. But his father didn't like Annie, so he never helped her. Directorin, you've been quite popular in the industry lately. Xia Tong stood up from the dining table and extended his right hand towards Nziheo. Thank you so much for coming. As soon as Nziheo stepped into the hotel, he understood the man's status, so he did not prepare to work with him. He originally thought someone from Hongchuan was here to discuss a collaboration. Who would have thought it was a powerless person? Thank you, young master. You're too polite. Nziheo extended his hand and shook the man's hand. Actually, I know you have a stunt double that signed a contract with the Savage Wars. But the role was originally reserved for my agency's artist. So, I wanted to ask if it's possible for your man to give up the role. Xietong asked in a serious tone. Xietong pretended to be serious. That role is very important to us. So you can name your conditions. After hearing this, Zihao did not say a word. Oh, by the way, I also know you have an action actress called Annie. If you're willing to give up the role, I can help Annie secure a good role. Zihao smiled and asked Xietong in return. You came prepared? Young Master Xie, are you asking me to sacrifice my artists? How is this considered a sacrifice? Chen Xingyan still has plenty of opportunities. Didn't I agree to give Annie a role that's not inferior to the Savage Wars? After all, she's working for you, so this shouldn't be a problem for you. Why aren't you compensating Chen Xingyan? Zihao asked as he got straight to the point. Because the starting point of the production is quite high. According to Chen Xingyan's request, she can't go, Xietong replied straightforwardly. Director, and no matter how I look at it, this matter is beneficial to you. Don't tell me you still want to reconsider? By sacrificing Chen Xingyan, the three of us can achieve our goals. After you compensate Chen Xingyan, wouldn't that be a win-win situation? Zihao's eyes were originally focused on the table, but after hearing Xietong's words he remained calm. I won't be touching Chen Xingyan's role. So, I don't think we can go through with this deal. What if I could give Annie a better role? I don't need it, Zihao replied. Xietong Kai looked at Zihao with a serious expression. The two men stared at each other for quite some time. In the end, Xietong Kai leaned back in his chair and glared at Zihao. For Chen Xingyan, her role in the Savage Wars isn't that important. I'm sure you know this, right? Yet you're not willing to give a better opportunity to Annie? Young Master Xie, this is my business. Aren't you afraid that Annie will find out about this? Xietong asked with a deeper meaning. I really feel sorry for Annie. Plus, Director, I don't think you're as rational as the rumors say. If you had a brain, you wouldn't have rejected such a generous offer so easily. Annie, I have my own plans. If young Master Xie has nothing else to say, I won't stay any longer. I still have something to do in the afternoon. After speaking, Zihao buttoned up his suit and stood up from the sofa to leave. Not long after, Annie approached Xietong from a nearby booth with a gloomy expression on her face. It seems it's time for you to get a new manager, Xietong said straightforwardly. Zihao has no intention of training you. At least for the time being, all his energy is focused on Chen Xingyan. Annie understood what Xietong was saying. But Zihao had signed her on, yet he didn't train her properly. Why was he doing this? At this moment, Annie still didn't understand the reason. Afterwards, Xietong pulled out a business card from his pocket and handed it to Annie. If you've thought it through, give me a call here. After speaking, Xietong also left the hotel, leaving Annie all alone in her seat in a daze. Not long after, Annie returned to the apartment to find Zihao installing a game console for Chen Xingyan in the living room. At that moment, she thought Zihao had always been high and mighty and would never do something so small for anyone. But her judgment was obviously wrong. Mr. N. Today, I received a phone call from Hongchuan Film and Television. They want me to audition for a role. I'm not going, Zihao replied without turning his head as he picked up his tools. But why? Annie questioned. Why can't I attend the audition? Hongchuan is only barely reliable. Plus, it's only during the chairman's reign. The higher-ups are currently in a mess. If you go, you might fall into a trap. Mr. N, are you trying to stop me from developing? Hearing this question, Zihao finally stopped what he was doing and lifted his head to look at the serious Annie. Trust is the prerequisite for cooperation. Do I need to stop you from developing? Annie did not respond. However, she thought to herself, if there was no prerequisite, he wouldn't have done it. But with Chen Xingyan he would. If there's nothing else, get some rest. Don't think too much. Annie clenched her fists and headed upstairs to her room. She then pulled out the business card that Xietong had given her. It wasn't like she had no choice but to follow Zihao. Plus, the way Zihao treated her, it was obvious that he had never treated her like an artist that yearned for success. From start to finish, he made her wait. In order to protect Chen Xingyan's role, he even rejected Xie Tong's offer. Annie couldn't understand what was going on, so she gave Little Five a phone call to complain. At this time, Little Five reminded her, "Annie, I think Mr. N only appears to value you on the surface, but he has a motive. Did you know? I have a feeling that he brought you back because he wanted to provoke Chen Xingyan." Hearing this, Annie froze in shock. Because Little Five's words had woken her up. Chen Xingyan had never been obedient to Nziheo's teachings, so he found her to motivate Chen Xingyan. This was also the reason why Nziheo didn't care about her future. Reality was cruel. Annie thought bitterly. So in a fit of anger, she directly called another agency. "Don't expect me to back out so easily. Since you've played me, then I will return the favor." Chapter 647. Late at night, as Chen Xingyan returned to her apartment, she noticed the game console on the table had been repaired. She couldn't hide the excitement on her face. But didn't they say they were going to send it back to the factory? How did it get repaired so quickly? Regardless, she decided to give Nziheo a phone call. "Are you asleep? Tell me." Nziheo was sitting in the living room sipping on a glass of red wine. "How did the game console get repaired so quickly? Who's so amazing? Even something from Germany can be repaired? I want to worship it." Me. Perhaps it was because Nziheo had a little too much to drink, but under the influence of alcohol, he was not as reserved as when he was sober. "You? Why don't I believe you?" Chen Xingyan scoffed. On the other end of the phone, Nziheo chuckled. It wasn't clear what was wrong with him, but he directly invited Chen Xingyan over. "Do you want to come over and have a drink with me?" "Huh." Chen Xingyan immediately covered her chest. "Are you trying to sleep with me? I need to be able to defeat you before I can sleep with you." Although Nziheo didn't want to admit it, when it came to strength, he was much weaker than Chen Xingyan. "You? What's wrong?" Chen Xingyan keenly noticed there was something wrong with Nziheo's emotions. "Who could provoke you? It's nothing. Go back to sleep. Although the game console has been repaired, it's just for you to look at, not for you to play with." After speaking, Nziheo hung up the phone. However, after hanging up the phone, he suddenly felt empty inside. He had never felt like this before, especially on a day like today. Perhaps it was because he had been lonely for too long. Chen Xingyan was a little surprised. For the sake of the game console, she decided to do some research on Nziheo. She actually didn't know Nziheo that well, did she? After searching Nziheo's name, apart from the awards he had won and his feud with Cheng Tian, there was also a trending topic about him and his model girlfriend. Looking at the date, Chen Xingyan understood. Today was the day his model girlfriend, Yun Xian, passed away in a car accident. No wonder an alcoholic would drink himself into a delirious state. Thinking of this, she felt relieved. Nziheo was already an adult, so there was no need for her to worry about him. Moreover, it had been so many years since that incident. It was time for Nziheo to withdraw from it. However, she didn't know why she couldn't fall asleep after taking a shower and jumping onto the bed. She tossed and turned, thinking about what Nziheo had said about going over for a drink. To prevent herself from thinking about it any further, Chen Xingyan put on a set of black sportswear and headed out the door. After arriving at Nziheo's apartment, she did not press the doorbell. Originally, she wanted to climb over the wall and take a quick glance at him before leaving. However, as soon as she climbed over the window and entered the living room, she thought she would be able to climb over easily. Who would have thought? Her head would get stuck in the gap between the window and she couldn't advance or retreat. Damn you! Nziheo was sitting in the living room, enjoying a small drink. When he heard the commotion, he immediately walked over to the balcony. There, he saw Chen Xingyan stuck at the window, clutching her stomach and laughing out loud. "What are you laughing at? Help me. Instead of using the door, you chose to climb over the window. This is karma." Nziheo quickly opened the window and let her in. People with good martial arts don't want to use the front door. How can I show off my abilities? Chen Xingyan was extremely disdainful, especially when she smelled the alcohol on Nziheo's body. She pinched her nose and asked, How much did you drink? A 19-year-old young lady, it's very dangerous for you to enter a single man's home. And Zihao said as he walked towards the front door. If you dare to move, I will paralyze half of your body. In reality, a threat like this did not have any effect on Chen Xingyan. But before she could notice, Zihao pressed her against the wall and trapped her between his hands. No matter how strong you are, you're still stuck against the wall. Chen Xingyan's face turned red as she used the iron head technique. All that was heard was a loud bang, as the couple held onto their heads and cried out in pain. Chen Xingyan, I've realized that you're quite violent. Since I know you're fine, I'm going to go back. Chen Xingyan did not want to stay with this man that reeked of alcohol. It's time to go back. Otherwise, I wonder what the news will write about us. And Zihao returned to the sofa, picked up a wine glass and continued to drink on his own. Chen Xingyan understood that Zihao was referring to the incident with Yin Xian. Let's go back through the front door. For some reason, under the moonlight, Zihao had a different kind of charm, especially his languid appearance. Finally, he wasn't as serious as he used to be. Instead, he looked more like a person. Chen Xingyan did not move. Women were born to comfort men. It gave them a great sense of achievement. Why aren't you leaving? I want to comfort you. Chen Xingyan said involuntarily. How? Use your body. Zihao smirked as he stood in the dark. Chen Xingyan was a little surprised. I don't want to commit a crime. Plus, I will never repeat my previous mistakes. Did Zihao mean that he would never develop feelings for an artist again? Hearing this, Chen Xingyan didn't know why, but she suddenly felt a little upset. It didn't take long before Zihao fell asleep on the sofa. Chen Xingyan leaned over and looked at him. She couldn't help but kick him a few times. Stupid man, you've finally given me a chance to get revenge. Not only did Chen Xingyan kick Zihao, she also used Zihao's Montblanc pen to draw a large picture of a tortoise on his face. Actually, Chen Xingyan had no idea that this was going to be the only time she and Zihao had a relaxing and simple relationship. Because, on the night that Zihao was drunk, Annie went to see someone else behind their backs. In fact, they came to an agreement and agreed to pay Zihao's compensation for breaking the contract. However, they wanted Annie to do something for them first. Annie was more than happy to do this. After all, when Zihao first approached her, she was full of hope for her career. But now, all she felt for Zihao was hatred. So, she wanted Chen Xingyan to experience the same pain. The night quickly passed and dawn arrived. Zihao woke up from his sleep feeling a sharp pain in his hip bone. He then entered the bathroom to wash up. As he looked at his reflection in the mirror, he couldn't help but smile helplessly. But a moment later, he couldn't smile anymore. The production crew had given him a phone call. Chen Xingyan's role had been retained, but a new role had been added to the script. This role was also going to be played by an Asian, but the role had already been confirmed. Zihao had no idea who this person was. As long as Chen Xingyan wasn't replaced, everything was fine. Since it wasn't an open audition, it was easy to understand that they were bringing money into the cast. Of course, he had no idea that this role was specifically created to counter Chen Xingyan. Chapter 648. That afternoon, on an old street, Bai Lihua went to the hospital that was related to the Bei family. But because it had been a long time, the hospital had already moved and the staff was nowhere to be found. So it was impossible for her to find any information. The Bei family obviously did not know about this incident. Otherwise, they would have caused a huge commotion. There was no way they would remain silent. But if Hua Wenfeng had nothing to do with her, then the DNA test would not show that they were related. But who in the world could give her an answer? The explosion 19 years ago was obviously deliberate. Yet Hua Wenfeng did not seem to be afraid of having her DNA tested. This proved that she had nothing to fear. As it was urgent, Bai Lihua received the test report earlier than Hua Wenfeng. But to everyone's surprise, even the doctor was stunned by the report. Madam Bai, sample number 3 is related to sample number 1 and sample number 2. In fact, it is a 99% match. Did you use 2 of your samples for the test? Doctor, are you certain that sample number 1 and 2 are highly similar? What if I told you that this DNA came from 2 different people? Bai Lihua asked. If they are of the same age, then you would have to consider that they are twins. Plus, the DNA is highly similar, so they should be identical twins, the doctor replied in seriousness. Are you saying that if the DNA of the child of an identical twin is highly similar to that of the twin, and that there is no way to determine who is the real mother? In theory, that is indeed the case, the doctor replied as she looked into Bai Lihua's eyes. So, under normal circumstances, if a twin were to impersonate one another, it would be very difficult to tell them apart. The only way to find out is through fingerprints. Fingerprints? Bai Lihua looked at her burnt finger. Did this mean that her only hope was gone? Hua Wenfeng was indeed her sister. This was an undeniable fact. But, why didn't the Bei family know about this? Worst of all, the explosion 19 years ago was obviously planned by Hua Wenfeng. She wanted to replace her. In other words, Hua Wenfeng knew everything. In order to change her fate, she was willing to kill her own twin sister. She stole her identity. She stole her husband. She stole her son. She stole her career. She stole everything she had, and she even stole her fate. This was too scary. Bai Lihua couldn't believe it. She never expected things to be so complicated, and Hua Wenfeng's identity to be so special. She wondered how many years she had been hiding behind the scenes to plan the show from 19 years ago. Hua Wenfeng was unimaginably evil. Although Bai Lihua didn't know how she had suddenly gained a sister out of nowhere, she returned to Hyatt Regency in a daze. She had a lot to say to Tongning, but in order not to alert her, she held herself back. Although they were blood-related sisters, Hua Wenfeng had stolen Tongning's identity in a bloody manner. Aunt Bai, what happened? Why are you so distracted? Tongning could sense the change in Bai Lihua. She could also tell that Bai Lihua's mood had changed a lot after returning from her trip. Xiaoning, do you think the scenes that often appear in movies also happen in real life? Bai Lihua asked. Tongning sensed something, but she did not directly ask Bai Lihua. Instead, she smiled and replied, Art indeed originates from life, but it doesn't surpass life. Actually, we see a lot of news every day. In this world, there are many complicated lives that can't be portrayed in movies. Aunt Bai, why do you ask? I mean, if your family took everything away from you, what would you do? Tongning looked at Bai Lihua. The answer was actually quite simple. Tang Xian once tried to take everything away from me. But in the end, everyone in Beijing saw what happened to her. Aunt Bai, you know very well that no matter if it's a parent, a sibling or a child, no one has the right to take something away from another. This is the fundamental right of a person, because they are an individual. But what if they were taken away from you? They would take it back the way they took it. What Hua Wenfeng had done wasn't called a robbery, it was a deliberate murder. Bai Lihua was well aware that it was time for Hua Wenfeng to pay her back for all the pain that she had endured over the years. Worst of all, Bai Lihua guessed that Hua Wenfeng was afraid that one day, she would come back and take everything back. That's why she decided to use an explosion to bury the truth. This was the only way she could destroy Hua Wenfeng's face and fingerprints, leaving her with no way to prove her innocence. What a vicious scheme. Thank you, Xiaoning. Auntie Bai, if you have ever been wronged, feel free to tell me. Bai Lihua immediately shook her head. After all, she was going to personally ask Hua Wenfeng for every single cent of the debt. At the same time, Tongning was almost certain of Bai Lihua's true identity. But she did not expose Bai Lihua. After all, the whole thing was too unbelievable. That night, just as Mo Ting returned home, Tongning whispered beside Mo Ting's ear. Auntie Bai asked me a lot of questions today. I'm sure she already has an answer in her heart. Plus, it seems she has only just figured out a few things. This was the first time Tongning had encountered something like this, so she couldn't make up her mind. Let's see what Aunt Bai wants to do, Mo Ting replied as he gently stroked Tongning's hair. If things are really as we predicted, then Auntie Bai's injuries and all the pain she has suffered over the years, she must have hidden them deep within her heart. Let's pretend we don't know anything, Tongning nodded her head. Just thinking about it makes my hair stand on end. In that case, the person who helped me get out of trouble and diverted the public's attention should be Aunt Bai, right? After speaking, Tongning lifted her head and met Emoting's gaze. Seeing his calm and piercing gaze, she immediately wrapped her arms around his neck. It's okay, the truth will be revealed sooner or later. Emoting did not say a word. He simply looked at his watch and reminded her. It's time to rest. If, and I'm just saying if, Hua Wenfeng has really treated Auntie Bai in such a way, then she should be cut into 1,000 pieces. Emoting did not say a word. He simply helped Tongning lie down and placed his hand on her bulging stomach. Did the baby kick you today? She has been very good. She has been quietly staying in my stomach. Go to sleep. After speaking, Emoting prepared to get up. But Tongning grabbed onto his wrist. Ting if. And I'm just saying if the baby really has a congenital illness like Hua Wenfeng said. What should we do? Chapter 649. Don't trust her words. Emoting placed a kiss on Tongning's forehead and coaxed her to sleep before he left the bedroom. However, as he stood in the hallway on the second floor and looked down at Bai Lihua, who was tidying up the living room, a cold glint appeared in his eyes. Not just Bai Lihua, but both Emoting and Tongning were not people to be trifled with. The next morning, Bai Lihua stepped out of Hyatt Regency with the intention of heading to a nearby mall to buy some daily necessities. However, at the entrance of the estate, she was stopped by a security guard. Ms. Bai, someone has sent me a letter asking you to go to the underground garage. Bai Lihua didn't need to think to know who it was. But the security guard said in a rare tone. Ms. Bai, can I ask you for a favor? Otherwise, the owner will make things difficult for me. Bai Lihua was well aware of Hua Wenfeng's tricks. 19 years ago, Hua Wenfeng had always liked to play tricks like this. So she replied coldly. You can look for whoever makes things difficult for you. It has nothing to do with me. After speaking, Bai Lihua turned and left. Hua Wenfeng did not dare to seek revenge on Tongning and Emoting, so she could only find trouble with her servant. Who would have thought, even Emoting's servant wasn't someone that she could easily bully. After Bai Lihua returned from her shopping trip, she casually explained the situation to Tongning. She simply wanted to give her a heads up. After hearing this, Tongning realized that she had neglected Bai Lihua's safety. So she gave Emoting a phone call and told him to be careful. At this time, Tongning could clearly feel. Bai Lihua could no longer hide her hatred towards Hua Wenfeng. That afternoon at the Hilton Hotel, although Annie had already signed with someone else, she remained calm and collected in front of Chen Xingyan, and in Zihao. She was the actress that had been selected for The Savage Wars. The new owner that Xie Tong had introduced to her was actually quite rich. Actually, I've thought of another way for you to vent your anger. However, you will need to pay a small price for it. The new owner's surname was Wang, and he was a middle-aged man in his 40s. As he sat on the sofa, he was dressed in a suit and held a glass of wine in his hand. He looked very polite. But no matter how stupid Annie was, she could tell what the scene in front of her meant. Previously, when she had signed the contract, it was because of her hatred towards Zihao. But today, her mind was very clear, so she could understand what this man in his 40s was thinking. Chief Wang, I think I should go home. After speaking, Annie was about to get up, but Chief Wang stopped her. You are already a signed artist of my agency. Do you think I would harm you? Annie took a few steps back in fear. Just as she was about to ask for help, the man pounced on her and carried her on his shoulder. You want fame, but you don't want to pay for it. What kind of logic is this? You have no power, and you can't give me any benefits. What else do you think I like about you other than your face and body? In her panic, Annie had completely forgotten to resist. By the time she reacted, she had flipped over and pinned President Wang under her. Then she threw a punch at him. If you dare to make a move today, your reputation will be ruined. Not only will you lose your role, you won't even have a place in the industry. After hearing President Wang's warning, Annie hesitated. Because of this, President Wang seemed to have seen through Annie's thoughts as he continued to tempt her. Did you think that your opponent is clean? In some dark corners, she is merely Nzeheo's bedmate. Otherwise, why would Nzeheo be biased towards her? Don't tell me you actually think that someone will admire your abilities? In this industry, there is no lack of abilities. As long as you follow me, the role of the villain in the Savage Wars will be yours. I will directly pay for Chen Xingyan to be replaced. Of course, if you reject me, you know what will happen to you. Thinking of Chen Xingyan and looking back at herself, Annie finally lowered her arms and looked at herself coldly. At this time, President Wang knew Annie's weakness, so he bravely pinned her under his body again. Afterwards, President Wang stood by the bed and put on his clothes. He turned his head to look at Annie, who was curled up on the bed. His voice was completely different from when he was on the bed. From now on, you will be my mistress. I promise to give you everything you want. You promised me that you would replace Chen Xingyan, Annie said as she buried herself in the blankets. Also, you will destroy Nzeheo's reputation. If it wasn't for these two, she wouldn't have let her guard down and allowed President Wang to take advantage of her. If it wasn't for Nzeheo, she would still be a simple university student. Of course, no problem. I can let you sign with my agency in a grand manner and give you the best resources. Annie knew that this President Wang was simply trying to make her fresh. Once a new person appeared, she would be nothing more than a pair of used shoes that would be tossed aside sooner or later. Even so, she was going to make Nzeheo and Chen Xingyan pay the price first. Nighttime in Beijing was bustling and lively. Nzeheo was preparing a contract with the U.S. agency when he received another phone call. Chen Xingyan has been replaced due to her dirty background. You shouldn't have hidden it from me. She has a history of lying. Nzeheo had never come into contact with such a fickle production team before. He felt a fire burning in his heart that was about to ignite. But, the contract has already been prepared. We're not signing anymore. We've already signed an action actress from another agency. Nzeheo held his forehead as he reminded himself not to lose his temper. I think the production team should give me an explanation. Otherwise, I will have to see you in court. We have the most professional team in the U.S. If you want to go to court, then be prepared to waste your time. Plus, it won't affect the progress of our production in the slightest. I'm calling you today to let you know. Do you have any respect for the contract? Nzeheo couldn't hold back his anger anymore. Let's talk in person. Otherwise, if the matter gets blown up, it won't do you any good. No need. Who do you think you are? You're just a new director. After speaking, the man hung up the phone, ignoring Nzeheo's anger. Nzeheo almost threw the phone in his hand on the ground. These Americans were complete jerks. Their so-called history of lying was simply an excuse to replace Chen Xingyan. He wanted to know who was so arrogant as to replace Chen Xingyan. Chapter 650. As it was late at night, Nzeheo did not return to Chen Xingyan and Annie's apartment. Instead, he called Chen Xingyan to tell her about the change in production. He wanted her to be prepared in case the Savage Wars made a shameless announcement and upset her. However, Nzeheo did not know how to tell Chen Xingyan. So he simply asked, "Have you ever been replaced for no reason when you're an extra?" Chen Xingyan was smart. From Nzeheo's tone, she could tell what he was trying to say. Her lips twitched. "Can I still trust you as a manager? You can even be replaced when you're just an extra. The other party directly called to fire you and even overturned the contract that was already in the process. I'm sure someone is manipulating things from behind the scenes. I haven't spoken to the production crew yet, but you need to be prepared. I still don't know if this incident is aimed at you or me. So be careful." Chen Xingyan rolled her eyes as she lay in bed. Perhaps Chen Xingyan didn't have many strong points, but she had been through a lot. So, even though she was replaced, she didn't feel defeated like Annie. That's why I've always been against acting in an American sci-fi film. It's impossible to trust the Americans. That's because I want you to gain experience. Although I don't like the Americans, I still need to acknowledge the difference between myself and them. After speaking, Nzeheo suddenly thought of his throbbing hip. "Did you kick me yesterday?" "I did," Chen Xingyan replied without hiding anything. Didn't I tell you that I'm a vengeful person? And Zihao, you should count yourself lucky that I kicked you 3 times. Did you know that? Did you know that I've already recorded everything that you've done to make me angry? And Zihao let out a gentle laugh. When it came to someone like Chen Xingyan, he felt an inexplicable headache. After all, it was impossible to tell what her intentions were and what she was feeling from her actions. Fine. He felt that taming someone like this was a challenging and exciting task. Chen Xingyan was in the living room when she received her phone call, so Annie overheard the entire conversation between her and Zihao. After all, Chen Xingyan wasn't a secretive person, so she did not hide anything during the phone call. That was it replaced? Annie stood in front of the dining table, holding a glass of milk in her hand. Of course, she wasn't going to give up on the opportunity to mock Chen Xingyan so easily. Yes, it has been replaced if you wish. Chen Xingyan did not feel disappointed or discouraged. She simply turned around and looked at Annie with a calm expression. Not sad? It depends on who I'm in front of. Chen Xingyan smiled. Xingyan, I didn't mean anything by it. It doesn't matter whether I have it or not. Since it's not important, how about a drink to celebrate our loss? Originally, Chen Xingyan thought that she had made it clear that she didn't want to talk to Annie anymore. But Annie took the initiative to bring her a glass of red wine. In fact, it was an expensive red wine. This bottle of red wine was prepared by my father to celebrate my role, but Annie said as she filled Chen Xingyan's glass. Chen Xingyan didn't move at first. What a joke. She had learned to be wary of others since she was young. So, she pretended not to accept Annie's kindness and sat upright on the sofa. Annie completely relaxed. She didn't care what Chen Xingyan thought as she picked up the glass of wine and gulped it down. Seeing that Annie was fine, Chen Xingyan picked up the glass of wine and took a small sip. The 2 women did not say a word as they continued to drink. By the time it was almost midnight, the 2 women sat on the floor hugging their wine glasses with flushed faces. Chen Xingyan's alcohol tolerance was average, so after drinking, her body began to heat up. Seeing this, Annie felt that the timing was perfect. So, she gave Zihao a phone call. Mr. An, are you asleep? Speak. Zihao was actually in the study room, trying to figure out how to deal with Chen Xingyan's replacement. Xingyan isn't in a good mood after being replaced. So we drank a little tonight and her body is currently burning up. I originally wanted to take care of her, but I'm not feeling well either. So, I wanted to ask if you could find someone to take care of her. I'm afraid she might have alcohol poisoning. Okay, go to sleep. After listening to the phone call, Zihao told Annie to go to sleep. He then picked up his jacket and headed straight for the couple's apartment. As soon as he entered the apartment, he saw Chen Xingyan sitting on the floor hugging a bottle of wine. He couldn't help but shake his head. Didn't she not care about being replaced? Actually, Chen Xingyan didn't care about being replaced. He was simply drunk. Zihao crossed his arms and let out a gentle laugh. He then knelt down in front of Chen Xingyan and patted her on the cheek. Wake up. Drunkard. Chen Xingyan slowly opened her eyes. As soon as she saw the man in front of her, she couldn't help but poke him. It's just a dream. Why does it feel so real? It even feels so sexy. Zihao. Don't think that just because you've entered my dream, you can bully me as you please. Let me tell you, I'm still going to bite you. After speaking, Chen Xingyan pushed Zihao onto the floor and bit down on his neck. Zihao could not make a sound, so he could only endure. Are you a Tibetan Mastiff? After biting him once, Chen Xingyan was satisfied as she lay on top of him. From the looks of it, she had fallen asleep. But just like Annie had said, her body was burning hot. It was likely alcohol poisoning. Zihao immediately carried her into the room and tried to lower her body temperature. However, in Annie's eyes, such a simple brawl was especially glaring. As a result, the intimate scene between the two was turned into a photo and stored on Annie's phone. Zihao, just wait for your reputation to be destroyed. Annie was determined to destroy the 2 women. Plus, she felt she was going to deal a direct blow to Zihao. But she never imagined One of the people she provoked was Mo Ting's sister and the other, Tongning's best friend. Tongning's mistress male lead releases another scandal. He played with a stunt double. Revealed to be In Ziheo's manager. He slept with a young model. Revealed Yun Xian's death was because of his philandering. By buying a trending search engine, posting a GIF and using the news from the past to create hype, and Ziheo and Chen Xingyan's intimate video easily made its way onto the headlines. People in the entertainment industry are all dirty. Is this In Ziheo the director of W.H.? I originally liked him, but I never expected him to be so open. The stunt double is too open. She directly pounced on him and bit him. Paparazzi, please learn from this type of evidence. You have to hug, kiss and enter a room together. That's what you call exposure. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the crew of the Savage Wars were a step ahead of In Ziheo as they announced the reason for their replacement. Due to the discovery of an inappropriate relationship between the two, the crew of the Savage Wars have decided to replace the actor. Chapter 651. At this moment, the sky was not completely bright yet. Clouds could still be seen on the horizon, but the nearby houses were still a blur. Hai Rui was the first to receive news of In Ziheo's scandal. As soon as Tongning heard about it, she subconsciously looked at Auntie Bai. Bai Lihua didn't understand what was going on. She took a look at Tongning's phone and saw her daughter playing a dirty game with In Ziheo. Her face turned pale. Afterwards, she pulled out her phone and gave In Ziheo a phone call. However, after taking care of Chen Xingyan for an entire night, In Ziheo was lying on the sofa without making a sound. Bai Lihua paced back and forth anxiously in the living room. Afterwards, Tongning tried to calm her down. Auntie Bai, I can guarantee on my honor that things aren't what you think they are. But Bai Lihua was a little speechless. But trust me, this is definitely a misunderstanding. Tongning pulled Bai Lihua over to sit beside her. That better be the case. Otherwise, how is Xiao Xing going to face the world in the future? Bai Lihua did not care whether Chen Xingyan would become famous or not. She simply wanted Chen Xingyan to be innocent and not be blamed. Why did something like this happen so soon after signing a contract with a good character? Would Mr. N really not do anything to her? Don't worry, he really wouldn't. Tongning definitely had the right to guarantee In Ziheo's character. Bai Lihua looked at Tongning in seriousness and forced herself to relax. She didn't know In Ziheo well, so she couldn't trust him. But she trusted Tongning. Seeing the worried look on Bai Lihua's face, Tongning already had a plan in her mind. If Bai Lihua was Mo Ting's biological mother, then Chen Xingyan was Mo Ting's half-sister. Plus, she liked Chen Xingyan's personality. So no matter what happened, she wasn't going to sit idly by. Thinking of this, Tongning immediately gave Feng Yu a phone call. Help me find out more about the Savage Wars from the front to the back. Tongning wasn't going to directly use Hai Rui's name. Firstly, she was merely an actress under Hai Rui. Secondly, Mo Ting was merely her husband and manager. At times like this, she needed to draw a clear line between herself and Hai Rui. There was no reason for Hai Rui to help a director that had nothing to do with the film. Xiao Ning. Don't worry, I won't sit idly by, Tongning promised in seriousness. And Ziheo woke up from Annie's shout. She looked anxious as she handed the phone to In Ziheo. Mr. N, look. And Ziheo got up from the sofa. After seeing the news, he immediately woke up. What's going on? I don't know. I saw the news early in the morning. And Ziheo immediately looked at his phone and realized he had 20 to 30 missed calls, including from Bai Lihua. And Ziheo headed to the bathroom to wash his face and organize his thoughts. In the end, he discovered that the only person that could capture a photo of him and Chen Xingyan at such a close distance was. So he walked out of the bathroom and grabbed Annie's wrist. Why did you do this? Annie was stunned for a moment. Mr. N, what do you mean? I didn't do it. Apart from you. Is there a fourth person in this house that can capture such a clear image of me and Chen Xingyan? Mr. N, it really wasn't me. If it really was me, I would have left a long time ago. Why would I wait for you to catch me? It really wasn't me. Annie's expression was very sincere and innocent. Seeing her cower, Nziheo couldn't help but suspect that there was a ghost in the house. Afterwards, Nziheo let go of Annie's wrist and warned coldly, "If I find out that you stabbed us in the back, I will return the favor to you for how you treated Chen Xingyan today." Annie's eyes filled with tears as she hid to one side in fear. At this time, Chen Xingyan walked out of the bedroom and looked at the two. "What's going on?" Nziheo glanced at Chen Xingyan and did not say another word. He simply picked up his jacket from the sofa and reminded Chen Xingyan as he walked out, "It's best if you don't leave the house today." "What's going on?" Nziheo did not respond as he walked off into the distance. Chen Xingyan looked at him confusedly, but Annie gestured for her to look at her phone. Of course, as soon as Chen Xingyan picked up her phone, she explained, "It really wasn't me. Unless I don't want to live anymore." Chen Xingyan glared at Annie without saying another word. After she finished looking at the news, she asked in a serious tone, "Do you think this scandal will destroy Nziheo's reputation?" Annie shook her head, indicating that she didn't know what the consequences would be. Then this question, "I think you should be able to answer me. That is, these photos, who took them? And how did they get leaked?" "I honestly don't know." "Fine, I know you're good at pretending to be innocent. Let me put it this way. Since it wasn't you, isn't it reasonable for Nziheo to step out and clear his name?" Annie's expression turned ugly. After a few seconds, she finally replied, "Last night you had a fever and I threw up quite a bit. So I gave Mr. N a phone call. But before he arrived, I went to bed and had no idea what happened between the two of you. How am I supposed to step out and clear my name?" Chen Xingyan looked straight into Annie's eyes, trying to see through her. But she couldn't figure out what this woman was thinking. "If I find out it was you, I will drag you down with me." After speaking, Chen Xingyan turned her head and wanted to step out to see what was going on. But the apartment was already surrounded. So, how did Nziheo leave without anyone knowing? "I am willing to testify for Mr. N." Perhaps it was to prove her innocence, or perhaps it was because she wanted to help Nziheo. Annie said to Chen Xingyan a moment later, "I am willing to testify for him. Originally, nothing happened between the two of you. So, I will definitely prove my innocence to the two of you and to myself." Another person was about to prove her innocence. "You said it yourself. Let's wait for Nziheo to make the arrangements," Chen Xingyan said to Annie. Annie nodded her head and quickly returned to her room to calm herself down. But when it came to proving Nziheo's innocence, when the time comes, they'll be in trouble. Chen Xingyan naturally understood that Annie didn't feel bad, so she called Hyatt Regency and briefly explained the situation to Tongning. After hearing this, Tongning suddenly laughed. "Why did you ask Annie to clarify this matter?" "I don't quite understand." To the public, Annie's words are not convincing at all. Chapter 652. Plus, since you're certain that Annie was the culprit, it means she's not ready to fall out with you yet. The reason is simple. She hasn't achieved her motive yet. If she does something even more outrageous, it's only because you still keep her under your eyes. Every move you make is clearly seen by her. After hearing Tongning's words, Chen Xingyan finally felt helpless. Although she had seen plenty of examples in the entertainment industry over the years, when it actually happened to her, she still found it hard to handle. She was normally wild and arrogant, but when it came to a critical moment, she couldn't do anything to help. "What should I do?" Chen Xingyan asked. "What should I do so that I don't drag Nziheo down?" "What? Do you feel that what you've done to him previously was too much?" Tongning couldn't help but laugh. Chen Xingyan was stumped by Tongning's question. All of a sudden, she couldn't help but ask herself, where did this worry come from? She was well aware that Nziheo was talented. But she was just a stunt double that didn't seek to improve herself. If Nziheo's reputation was ruined because of this scandal, then she would have to live with guilt for the rest of her life. She didn't like the feeling of owing someone. "Ningjie, tell me, what should I do to help Nziheo?" "You don't need to do anything. Just wait patiently and you will be helping Nziheo," Tongning replied. Don't give Annie another chance to attack you or Ziheo. Am I supposed to do nothing? At a time like this, there's no point in doing anything. Tongning was relatively straightforward with her words. It was a warning to Chen Xingyan that she had entered the industry on her own and ignored the people around her. If she continued to be stubborn like this from now on, not only in Ziheo, but a lot of other people would suffer along with her. Okay then, I won't do anything. After speaking, Chen Xingyan hung up the phone. She originally wanted to give Ziheo a phone call, but she felt it would be useless. Afterwards, she walked into the living room and looked around. She discovered that the photo was taken from the entrance of Annie's room. Chen Xingyan suppressed her anger and pretended to be calm as she knocked on Annie's door. Behind the door, Annie was holding onto her phone. As soon as she opened the door, she handed it to Chen Xingyan. Worse news: Director Chen Feng's production team, concubine Ning, have announced that they have terminated their contract with Mr. N. According to this speed, I'm afraid Mr. N won't be able to find work for a long time. After reading the message, Chen Xingyan handed the phone back to Annie. She then pulled out her own phone and showed Annie a photo. Only where you are standing right now and at your height would you be able to capture the sign in this way. Am I right? Annie looked at the photo that Chen Xingyan had taken of her doorstep and fell silent. Even if you don't admit it, I can still show you more evidence. Annie, can you stop acting? Annie lifted her head. Her eyes were red, as if she was trying her best to hold back something. Then, Annie nodded and suddenly laughed arrogantly. It's me, so what? But now does it still matter who the informant is? Or, if you go and arrange for a press conference and tell the reporters that I arranged everything, do you think they would believe you? Chen Xingyan did not say a word as she threw a punch at Annie and knocked her to the ground. I know you hate me, but why are you treating Ziheo like this? Annie lay on the ground and held onto her injured face as she sneered. Don't you think he's always been biased towards you? I don't think so. That's because you're stupid. Can't you tell that Ziheo asked me to come back to motivate you? Previously, when the Savage Wars was hiring, you refused to sign a contract with him. He said he would give the opportunity to me. But what happened in the end? He never mentioned a single word about me to the director. From the beginning, he was waiting for you to change your mind. What equal opportunity? Let the director decide. Actually, the opportunity has always been yours. It has never been mine. Do you know how much this has hurt me? I'm just a university student. I thought I was about to make a comeback and debut. But, what happened in the end? Even though he gave me a chance to make up for it, he ignored the fact that I wanted to have the same starting point as you and develop my career overseas. As soon as he found out that I didn't pass the interview, he didn't even try to fight for me. Don't you think he's not biased enough? After hearing Annie's words, Chen Xingyan was completely dumbfounded. She had no idea that Ziheo had done so much for her behind the scenes. When you said you wanted to fix your video game console, he immediately took it home and fixed it himself. You look more pitiful than I do, but you are actually the one that he loves the most. So why do you think I'm treating Ziheo like this? Because he brought this upon himself. Chen Xingyan knelt on the ground and grabbed onto Annie's shirt. She then raised her fist, ready to hit her again. This time Annie did not dodge. She lifted her head and prepared to receive the punch. However, at this time, the apartment door was suddenly kicked open. 5-6 men barged into the apartment. As soon as they entered, they gave Chen Xingyan a heavy beating. It was impossible for Chen Xingyan to fight against 5 professional bodyguards, so she lay motionless on the ground. Annie was helped up by the leader of the group. Are you okay? Grab her, Annie said to the bodyguards without caring about her pain. The bodyguards did as they were told and lifted Chen Xingyan up. At this time, Annie walked over and threw a punch. This punch is for you. Not long after, she threw a second punch. This punch is for you. Annie then stood up, brushed off the dust on her body and changed her appearance as she looked down at Chen Xingyan. Did you think that's it? Actually, I was the one that stole your role in the Savage Wars. If I don't replace you, how could I be satisfied? Didn't you want to be a stunt double? Weren't you very stubborn? From now on, you can be stubborn as much as you want. The best is yet to come. Without Ziheo, let's see who else can save you. After speaking, Annie turned around to leave. She then said to the leader of the group, let's teach her a lesson. Take care, Miss Annie. Afterwards, Chen Xingyan no longer remembered what happened. She simply didn't want to remember what happened afterwards. A lesson from the industry. It turned out to be a group of men surrounding her and peeing on her. The disgusting smell spread from the top of her head to the rest of her body. As soon as Chen Xingyan closed her eyes, she thought of killing someone and taking Annie down with her. Chapter 653. Although there was no way to prove that Annie was the one who started the scandal, everyone knew that she was the culprit. Tongning asked Long Jie to investigate the industry. Long Jie's response was that Annie had been in close contact with the CEO of a new entertainment agency over the past 2 days. In fact, they had even booked a hotel room together. I've asked my friend to meet up with President Wang and get some information. Wait for me tonight, Long Jie replied. For a nouveau riche like him to open an entertainment agency, he only has one motive: to sleep with as many newcomers as he can. So he will stop at nothing and prioritize sex and money. Do you understand what I mean? Tongning said with a hidden meaning. Make sure you do it discreetly. It's best if you can find evidence. I understand, Long Jie replied. She couldn't hide the excitement in her voice. How long had it been since she had exercised in the industry? For someone like President Wang, there was no need for Tongning to personally meet with him. But for the director of the Savage Wars, she could meet with him. Lastly, help me make an appointment with the American director. I have a few questions I want to ask him. No problem, Long Jie agreed. After all, after going through so much with Tongning, she was used to Tongning's way of doing things. As long as Tongning made an appearance, the one to suffer would always be someone else. And Ziheo did not have a team. So, after the scandal was exposed, his weakness was completely exposed. At this time, he had no PR resources. As for Director Chen Feng, he had already explained everything to him. Director Chen Feng also told him that if he couldn't clear up the scandal, then he would have to resign from his position as assistant director. He understood Chen Feng's character, so he promised the director that he would give him a satisfactory explanation. He had to admit, he wasn't cautious enough. At a time like this, the slightest mistake could have cost him his life. Yet, he still allowed Chen Xingyan to do as she pleased, resulting in a disaster. Thinking of this, he didn't explain everything to Chen Xingyan before he left home. He wasn't sure what kind of trouble she would cause with her temper. Because of his worries, Ziheo gave up on going home and headed straight for Chen Xingyan's apartment. However, as he stepped out of the elevator, he noticed the front door was unlocked. Ziheo immediately opened the door and walked in. He saw Chen Xingyan lying in a pool of smelly liquid, twitching all over. Ziheo was shocked as he hurried over to help her up. However, at this time, Chen Xingyan suddenly yelled, "I'm going to kill Annie." What happened? Ziheo immediately grabbed onto Chen Xingyan and questioned her. He then noticed the obvious scars on her face and neck. Chen Xingyan broke free from Ziheo's grip and pushed him to the side. "It's none of your business. You just need to tell me where Annie is." There was no need to ask the answer. Ziheo had already guessed what had happened after he left. Seeing the look on Chen Xingyan's face, Ziheo thought to himself, how much has she suffered to make her so angry that she's about to go crazy? On the ground, there was the smell of urine, and Ziheo couldn't imagine what Annie had done to Chen Xingyan. "Tell me." "Calm down. You won't be able to change anything like this. In fact, you will only bring more trouble to yourself." Ziheo hugged Chen Xingyan tightly. "I don't care. I care." Ziheo yelled. "Endure it. Just endure it for a little longer. I will definitely make Annie pay you back 100-fold for everything she has done to you." Chen Xingyan's eyes were bloodshot. It seemed, it took all the strength in her body to hold back the anger and grievance in her heart. Ziheo lifted Chen Xingyan in his arms and carried her into the bathroom. He placed her in the bathtub and washed her from head to toe with warm water. "Trust me, trust me." Hearing Ziheo repeat these 3 words over and over again, Chen Xingyan suddenly looked at him like a child. Seeing this, Zihao felt even more guilty. I shouldn't have left you on your own. From now on, I will take you with me everywhere I go. I will never leave you on your own again. Chen Xingyan had already given up on the idea of getting revenge on Annie, but she still balled her hands into fists and cracked them. I will definitely kill her. I definitely will. In this aspect, Chen Xingyan and Tongning were very similar. When they were wronged, they would never show weakness in front of others. This was the difference between them and other women. But the difference between Chen Xingyan and Tongning was that the quieter Tongning was, the more dangerous she was. Because in her mind, she was always thinking about how to defeat her enemy. On the other hand, Chen Xingyan was much more explosive than Tongning. If Annie was standing in front of Chen Xingyan, he was certain that Chen Xingyan would tear her apart without hesitation. And Zihao's heart ached. It reminded him of the time when he failed to protect Yan Xian and caused the people he cared about to get hurt. Come, I'll take you to get some rest. After helping Chen Xingyan bathe, Zihao carried her into the bedroom. Get some sleep and calm yourself down. Go do what you need to do. I won't cause you any trouble, Chen Xingyan said as she sat on the bed. Zihao originally wanted to say something, but at this moment, he received a phone call from Bai Lihua. Zihao picked up the phone and handed it to Chen Xingyan. Chen Xingyan lowered her head and called out pitifully, Mom! As soon as she called out, not only Bai Lihua, but Zihao's heart also tightened. Hand the phone to Zihao, Bai Lihua said angrily. After hearing Bai Lihua's words, Zihao took the phone from Chen Xingyan's hands. Of course, he was already prepared to be scolded. Prove my daughter's innocence. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Auntie Bai, don't worry. Even if I have to go through fire and water, I will make sure Xiaoxing returns to how she was before. You better keep your word, Bai Lihua warned coldly. Although we don't have a man in our family, no one is easy to bully. If you don't have the ability to protect my daughter, then return her to me. I'll take care of her myself. Auntie Bai, trust me. Go comfort my daughter. After speaking, Bai Lihua hung up the phone. Of course, Tongning, who was sitting in the living room, heard the entire conversation as a smile appeared on her face. This was how Emoting's mother should be. This was how domineering she should be. She wasn't like Hua Wenfeng's embarrassing behavior. Of course, no one in the Mo family was easy to provoke. Since they had offended them, they needed to pay the price. After putting down his phone, Zihao gently patted Chen Xingyan on the head. It's all my fault for not protecting you properly. Why did you do so much for me behind my back? Chen Xingyan asked confusedly. Why would you do something like this when it comes to the character, the game console and all sorts of other things? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.